Okay. I think I've clicked all the buttons. I think I've turned all the knobs. I think everybody's here. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to yet another episode of WhickTV. It's a cross-ideological space where we come together to talk about issues both political and cultural, from the silly to the serious. And today we are going to be talking about the Department of Education, okay? The Department of Education was established in 1980 after Jimmy Carter, I believe, signed an executive order, or signed it into law, I should say. Since then, it's come under attack from a variety of angles, most recently from Trump and MAGA and conservatives who want to get rid of it. Trump has threatened to sign an executive order to get rid of the Department of Education. Today, we're going to be talking about that. Has the Department of Education failed us? Or has it succeeded? Should we keep it? Should we get rid of it? Should we rebuild it? What is the proper way to address this? And I have some lovely guests with me today. Okay, lovely. One just got here, but we're going to be talking about that. But I want to pass the mic first to give them all a chance to introduce themselves, have opening statements. I want to pass the mic first to Soy Pill. Soy Pill, take it away. You're the one who DM'd me about this first. You get the first crack at the openings.
Yeah, way to out me as terminally online. Hi, I'm the Soy Pill. I make political YouTube video essays. Sometimes I do debates on Wick's channel. I am against abolishing the Department of Education on the sole basis that the arguments that I have heard from conservatives are spurious and lame. Mostly it seems that they want to stop fraud and waste, and yet at the same time they're backing this up by saying we're going to transfer all of the funding to other departments, which makes no sense to me, because if you're going to get rid of one of the smallest cabinet departments that exists, if not the smallest, and then put all those responsibilities on other departments, you're not really saving any money. But what they really want to do is get rid of the Department of Education because they don't want the funding going to the disabled kids, the impoverished kids. They want states to be able to control it in the way that allows them to do state vouchers. And you can look at the example of Arizona and how this has failed horribly. I don't want that to happen. I think it's a bad idea, and I am against fraud and waste. And if my detractors want to argue against that, we can talk about that, but I don't think that's what's happening right now. So I hope that we keep the DOE, or Department of Education, for all of the good that it does for the kids that need that money in impoverished communities, disabled communities, and etc.
Okay, thanks for being here. We'll get into it as we go. Deej, you're up.
Howdy, I'm Deej. I occasionally make YouTube videos about flight simulator, stuff like that. Not really a huge amount politics-wise. But as far as kind of my stance, I think the Department of Education has failed at its goals. I think despite its efforts, it hasn't made a meaningful impact on solving educational disparities in America between the ceiling and the floor. And any success it has had has been more bringing the ceiling down to raise the floor. I don't think that it helps us achieve educational excellence in this country. And that the amount of return we get for the, albeit small, budget we do allocate towards it is very minimal. And I think that there are larger issues than strictly funding when it comes to education. And whether a state succeeds educationally seems to be dictated more by a state's policies than by federal policies. I could be convinced not to gut the Department of Education, but I think it's in need of serious restructuring if we want to take education seriously as a country.
Okay, thanks for being here, and I appreciate you being willing to come on. I thank you. Next up, the Libertarian Trap. Go ahead.
Hey, how's it going? I'm the Libertarian Trap on Twitter. I basically just shitpost and meme a lot, but I also put out ideas of free market principles. And one of the things I'm here to advocate for is school choice, and why once we have school choice, nationwide universal school choice, we're really not going to need the Department of Education, because we're returning power to the parents, we're returning power to the states. And that's just pretty much it.
Okay. Well, thanks for being here. We'll get into it.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome. Stardust, it's been a while. Welcome back to the show. Give us your thoughts. Go ahead.
Yeah, so thank you for having me. So basically, I just think that this, from all the reading that I've done so far, it seems that the Department of Education seems to mostly be in charge of loans and stuff relating to college loans, repayment, stuff like that, with some minimal funding that goes towards states. In a broad sense, it seems like the states still have majority of the say of what goes on in their schools. They make majority of the decisions, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't understand this, why people want to get rid of this department that is just going to have a lot of its responsibilities be delegated to other departments. I think it's just going to be more inefficient. I think we'll just be overburdening other departments like the Department of Justice, whoever is going to take charge of like making sure people have equal access to education. There are maybe some things that could be changed in the Department of Education. I'm sure that there are some, there are things that we can cut and waste that we can cut out. But I also don't think we should be dismantling something before figuring out how to distribute responsibilities. And I just feel like this would be a really bad executive order to do. And we're already like tanking our international reputation. Already the jokes are, Americans are dumb. So I don't know what this is supposed to do for us, basically. So
well, thanks for being here. Welcome back to the show, and we'll get into it as we go. Next up, last but certainly not least, Gelatinous Rube. Go ahead.
Hi, can you see me?
Yes, go ahead.
And hear me?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Excellent, because I dropped out there for a second. Yeah, so my opinion is that the Department of Education is functionally a religious caste, part of a religious caste that we have in America, where these people primarily act as placeholders, people to whom responsibilities are passed up, the responsibilities and excuses are passed back down to the local people who are having problems but would be better equipped to deal with them, like our local schools, our local departments of education. If Texas has its own, if it has its own department dedicated to handling Texas education, it's going to be able to deal with those issues just fine. There's no need to have a religious figurehead or several religious figureheads at that. Certainly not a welfare apparatus dedicated to keeping a bunch of administrators employed for no apparent reason. We could just pay them some basic welfare and have them stay at home, not interfere with any kind of local affairs, which schooling, of course, is. And yeah, that's what I got.
Okay, thanks for being here. I guess to open us up, let's start. And I got a question for Soy and Stardust, I guess, to start. Let's what benefits, in your opinion, has the Department of Education provided the American people since its founding? Give us your best arguments for why Department of Education has succeeded and is good. Go ahead.
Yeah. Do you want me to go first? Or I'm already talking. Yeah, I think Pell Grants have helped a lot of impoverished communities go to college when they otherwise couldn't. I think that it provides a lot of money for like Title I goes to impoverished areas where if your state funding is not enough because you're in a rural community, maybe you don't get a lot of money from taxes, it subsidizes those schools and allows them to be higher standard. It also helps students with disabilities who would otherwise would not have the same sort of disability program. So if it's autism, English second language, speech impediments, all these things that if it was just stripped away entirely, theoretically could be replaced. But from what I understand and from what we see when we turn things back to the state, hoping that every state lives up to the standards that already exist and are enforced by the federal government is not the best way to do things. And just on top of that, it enforces all of the anti-discrimination policies against any sort of student of color, LGBT stuff. And I don't want that to go away. And I hope that if they do replace it, they actually have a good alternative, because from what I hear, they don't. So.
Yeah, I echo a lot of those statements. I think additionally, education is one of these things that makes one of the biggest impacts on people's future as adults, their income, their future children, how well they do in society. So I do think it's very important to ensure that people from impoverished communities are able to access education, and people who happen to have special education needs, that gets funded in a reasonable and meaningful way.
Okay, why is that argument bullshit, anti-DOEers? Go ahead, respond. This is open discussion time, so go ahead.
So, the common theme that I usually hear when discussing the value of the Department of Education usually comes down to that, well, funding for poor people or the disabled. The problem I have with that premise is that before the Department of Education existed, we did have, funding for a lot of those things. Now, the amount of funding granted has increased as time goes on. However, we still don't see with those increases in funding the disparities between the disadvantaged and the low income, socioeconomic groups and the higher socioeconomic groups.
When you say disparities, what do you mean? Like money, or do you mean test results, or
test results?
Okay, but giving money doesn't just translate into better test results. So you can't just expect if I throw $1 trillion at a school system.
That's a pretty easy choice. Stop giving money then. If it's not having a positive impact, then we could save some money.
Well, I didn't say it didn't have positive impact. I said it didn't necessarily increase your test results to make a school better. What it does do is lift students out of poverty. It keeps students off the street. It reduces crime, which is one thing. Okay. Now, I don't know if you want to argue against or for that.
And we can bring them to these other places, but we don't necessarily have to do that by increasing class sizes or increasing spending on education or potentially prevent more qualified students from actually getting a place in higher education, which is should be, I'm sure we can all agree on this panel, a place where we're drawing our brightest mind, our best and brightest, to drive forward American industry.
Sure, and another great example is there was a study out of Florida in May of 2021 that showed that when you increased competition with private schools and charter schools in Florida, you also increased academic as well as behavioral outcomes in public schools.
Yeah, but that's self-evident because when you give vouchers to these places, you're going to want to attract the best and brightest students who will come and give your school the most money. It incentivizes people to take the best people.
Explain the increase in academic and behavioral outcomes in public schools.
In public schools?
You're giving them money. Yes, that's what the study stated.
If you increase competition in private schools, the study says that public schools then do better.
If you increase competition with private and charter schools against public education.
Advocating against, I don't understand why it's relevant. I don't think anybody's advocating against private and charter schools.
Oh, absolutely not. I'm just saying that there's a way to increase outcomes both academically and behaviorally in public schools if you increase competition through school choice.
Can you explain the mechanism by increasing this competition through school choice and how this increased public school performance?
Parents to choose what schools they want to send their kids to. This also prevents a lot of discrimination.
It prevents discrimination?
It can.
I mean, the origin of school choice was actually to discriminate and kind of fight against desegregation, but how would it actually... Why are you... Okay, this is just a historical... Well, that's a historical fact if you look at how school choice was tried to be used in the 60s and 70s, but I'm not saying that's why you're advocating for it.
60s and 70s.
Yeah, okay. The Dixiecrats, again. But regardless, that doesn't matter because your argument... Obviously, I don't think you're arguing for that. Can I call you trap? Is that a slur? What do I call you?
I'll give you a T-pass, okay?
Sorry?
Libertarian, just for the sake of my goddamn channel, okay? Call her libertarian.
Libertarian, yeah. So libertarian could...
You can call me LT for short if you want.
What? I'm actually wondering because... Soy, you said... Or do you prefer I call you... Well, I'll call you Soy.
You can call me Soy.
Do you... Okay. What is the goal of the Department of Education? Because when I said that it hasn't had a meaningful impact on educational outcomes, at least as far as testing, which is really the only qualitative measures that we have to measure this. The
inception was there's a lot of more funding going into, I mean, this is why Jimmy Carter did. There's a lot more funding going into education, period, 50s, 60s, 70s. And he says, why don't we consolidate this into a department that is going to manage how this funding is spread out? Now, if you're saying, yes, it doesn't necessarily increase test scores in a one-to-one correlative with money, but the measurement is, hey, are we keeping students in poverty able to be educated? If education is a right, are we actually having schools that teach them anything at all in these areas? Are disabled students allowed to function, right? This is a very different thing.
Let's start there because you mentioned something, and I'm curious if everyone agrees. Who here thinks education is a right that should be available to all children? Raise your hand. Okay, so we got to address that, right?
It's pretty big.
We don't have to. We don't have to address it. I don't want to get into a libertarian brain rot argument, honestly, but
It would depend
why I
on
don't
what
wanna
we
address
mean
it.
by access to an education. Like, because I don't think that like access to somebody else teaching you something is a right, but like no one can prevent you from learning.
Right.
I don't know.
So
I
they
think
don't
we're
they don't
speaking
agree.
the positive-
Look,
we're not
okay,
speaking the positive
I
right
think we can
sense
move
of, like,
past.
hey, we're gonna
I think all
let
of these people
people-
would say I would be fine with there being no public education, and if students are poor, they don't get educated, right? Like I know that sounds bad, but raise your hand if you even remotely agree with that.
Well, because I don't agree with that.
Well, you just said you're not entitled to someone else's right to teach you, i.e., a public school teacher, right?
You were
Well,
saying
as in,
something
like, I
weird,
don't
and
think
then you
you're
were talking about
entitled
poor.
to the right to it. I think that as a society and a developed nation, it's something we should afford to everybody. I think it's an opportunity everyone should be given. But like,
What's the
you know,
difference?
the difference
Voluntarism
is you
versus poor.
can't guarantee that right to somebody.
Well, we do right now. So
Well, no, we don't, because like parents can. I mean, there are children that don't have it, even though we try to give it to all.
we guarantee it insofar as to the extent of our abilities, and some people slip through the cracks. But it's a right insofar as any other right we try to guarantee.
Yeah, positive enforceable right that's been established. I think that's reasonable. And going over the difference between these two things is probably going to be a waste of the next half hour. That's
Yes,
not
thank
going to
you.
have any impact on the Department
Yeah, I don't
of
think that's.
Education.
Yeah,
Move on, please.
thank you.
Okay, well, in that case, right? If you guys don't want to address that, that's fine. Let me read a super chat just to kind of get in, because this will bring up some topics as well. This is from Gregio for $10. Thank you for the $10. SPED teacher, special education teacher here. Please ask the anti-DOE people who will administer IDEA if the DOE goes away to ensure all students get FAPE. I don't know these acronyms. And why those who want to abolish it haven't proposed a replacement. And so I guess to kind of like translate this a bit, if the Department of Education is no longer enforcing that schools have to provide programs for those children who are who have special needs, if you will, how do we ensure states will continue to fund those? Like, what mechanism?
Are you sure that's what he was
Why
asking?
wouldn't they though? Like that is such a popular thing for politicians. If a politician was to take that away, that's almost guaranteeing losing yourself an election. So the question should be, why would they remove those protections and rights?
I think the question was actually who is going to give Gregio money, because Gregio couldn't even spend the time to tell us what the funding was. He just decided to like put this acronym in the chat. That's not really good for communicating your ideas to other people. Kind of sounds like he's a shitty teacher and he should be fired.
Whoa, hold on. The onus should be on you, Ash, to know what idea is.
Hold on. Stardust, go ahead.
I don't know. Okay, I'm not going to make any assertions about random chatters and how good of teachers they are. Okay, you know, nice one there, buddy. IDEA is the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, and there's also the Every Student Succeeds Act. Basically, with IDEA, majority of federal funding for special education comes from IDEA. Provides grants to states for programs that support children with disabilities and infants, toddlers, and their families, basically. I want to address an argument that somebody made earlier, saying that like, oh, this would, you know, not funding special education would clearly like cost a politician their election. How many families do we have that have like special, like somebody with special needs to the extent that they need special education, right? I don't think.
Why would that only be from families with special needs?
I think a lot of people.
No, it's a reasonable question.
Wait a minute. I think a lot of people make decisions on who they vote for based on how it affects them individually. Whether we like to admit it or not.
You also have people who vote based on principles as well.
I'm still talking. I'm not finished. Okay. Whether we want to acknowledge it or not, people are pretty selfish on a basic level. Okay, people will vote for what basically materially affects them. If it has no impact on them, if they don't have somebody with special needs in their family, why should they give a fuck whether this politician actually funds it or not. This is why like federal regulations or some minimal federal regulation at some level is important, at least when it comes to enforcing equal access to people who have special needs and people who are impoverished.
And I just want to jump in real quick, and that's just
real quick,
the idea that they wouldn't do it if it's unpopular is ridiculous. 60% of people don't want to get rid of the DOE, so they're going to do it, or they're trying to, and that's not popular. Like, that's never stopped Trump from doing something really fucking stupid, but go on.
Okay, I want to give it to Deej. He has his hand up. Then I'm going to give it to LT. And then if Discount Vosh wants in, I'll give it to him.
I regret
You have better hair.
To answer Greggio's question,
Also
I think it actually goes back to what Soy was saying. When the Department of Education was founded, there was a lot of funding that was being thrown, or at least it was increasing, for education in general throughout the nation, because everybody at the time, well, a majority of people wanted to invest in American education. So this idea that without the Department of Education, no one would want to fund these programs just isn't really true, because that funding was coming. Carter just wanted to consolidate it under a single branch. I think that is less effective. I think the Department of Education would be more effective, split up into multiple different offices.
Well,
and
can you elaborate
the Department
why?
of Education is
Like, would
so
what? Because like, you could convince me otherwise on this, but my understanding is if you were to take what the DOE does right now and put it to the Treasury and the DOJ and all these other places, now you've got. I mean, like, this seems to me like the libertarian slam dunk of like, why would I want 6 different agencies doing the job of one, and with all the cross communication issues that happen between all of those, why is that better somehow? Especially if you're not actually saving on the employment costs, you're just splitting it up, right?
And just to kind of piggyback off that, just as another thing, like we established after 9/11, we established a Department of Homeland Security because splitting up the responsibilities to many different organizations had a cascading failure effect where no one was communicating and it ended up being really bad. So I am very curious to your answer. Why would distributing the responsibility make things better?
So the reason is because the Department of Homeland Security and the needs of what needs to happen for securing something like national defense does require a unified front on all of that. And there's a constitutional argument for that as well, right? The Homeland Defense all falls under one umbrella. The Department of Education is actually very broad in what it covers. It doesn't just cover funding, it covers research, it covers funding, it covers programs to affect the in-classroom behavior of teachers. It has a very wide breadth of things that it covers. And I think that as a general rule, national defense can have a one-size-fits-all solution. Education does not, because every single state and all of the children's needs. I'm oversimplifying there, Wick, but the educational needs of children in California are dramatically different than the educational needs of children in Nebraska, etc. And so this is actually one area where I think decentralization, with a certain level of oversight and funding provided, because I do think it's important we invest in education, is going to be more effective. And some schools are going to flounder, but it also gives the room for local innovation.
Yeah, but Deej, what you just described is the Department of Education. It's 90% of all of this funding comes from the state and local level. They decide the curriculum. They decide where most of this money goes. They don't even have to accept that 10% from the federal oversight. And the oversight that you're describing is, hey, you can't be discriminatory. You have to put this money and make sure it goes equitably. So you're putting it into schools that might need it more. Like, what is different between what you just described in the DOE in its current form?
Well, the No Child Left Behind policy was a lot more invasive into schools than what you're describing, right? There was it was a overall top level policy that would punish schools that would get worse test results, and as a effect, you saw schools and teachers spend a lot of time teaching to the specific tests,
yeah,
rather than
so in its current form, it literally congressionally is inhibited from doing anything involving test scores. So maybe in the past it has done that. I don't even know if Common Core was established from it, but the DOE is not allowed to do test scores as some sort of controlling mandate anymore. So that's not a thing
anymore.
From the ESSA, so 2015 at the very least.
Okay. Yeah. So basically, once it showed that it was extremely ineffective in
Okay, so 10 years later now, we should still get rid of it because...
Well, you see a similar thing happening with Common Core right now as well. Now, granted, Common Core is not nearly as invasive because they are not like enforcing it, but you still have a lot of states trying to adopt Common Core, and Common Core has not been very effective at improving the academic outcomes.
Sure, but you're saying a state choosing, which is what you're advocating for, to do something that's not effective is why we should get rid of a federal oversight cabinet? I don't understand.
So the reason being that the states are choosing it because the federal oversight is the one that's promoting it.
Sure, they're promoting it,
but
they're not enforcing it in any way. And if it doesn't work, it won't work. And if you get rid of it, the research of whether or not it's working is going to go away too. In fact, we've already canceled $1 billion worth of contracts into this research from Doge or whatever.
All the research for Common Core shows that it'll work wonderfully, and the empirical evidence isn't supporting the research. But the point is that like schools have a good reason and states have a good reason to implement Common Core, because any criticisms of it can be levied at the federal government to shield the local politicians from any ramifications of changes they make to the education system.
Okay, so the argument is Common Core is a scapegoat for bad practices. They won't do good practices. Like, I'm not really hearing why we should like. Well, right, they can, but what I'm hearing is like, hey, states might do these scummy things, which, if anything, I feel like is an argument in our favor. Like, yeah, maybe there should be some sort of federal mandate to make sure these states don't choose these incredibly scummy policies to hide behind. But you're saying, oh, well, they're going to shield themselves from any bad decisions by just saying, oh, it's Common Core's fault, when they may or may not be implementing other things that hurt educational outcomes. I'm not following how this has anything to do with getting rid of the DOE.
It's like once the standard is there, basically you have a federal government saying this is the standard we want to implement for education, and then states now were cut between a crossroads of, if we try and do anything experimental, we have to compare it to the standard, and we're going to be like brutally criticized to try new things. Which some new things, they're not going to work. Usually to fix something, sometimes you have to break it, and states are more equipped to be able to do that more rapidly. But like, the reality is that from like a education outcome perspective, the DOE is holding us back from being able to really get our test scores up higher. Like, we have a lot of smaller countries.
So wait, let's focus on that. So they're doing that how? By because they even promoted Common Core.
I want to finish this back and forth, but other people do.
Like, I just wanted to ask, like, how is the DOE holding us back? Like, by what?
By implementing a national standard that the schools are expected
implemented
to
a national
meet
standard.
with the national standard. The Common Core is still a national
That's
standard.
First of all, the DOE didn't invent the Common Core, and also they're not implementing it. They're just saying like, hey, this is a standard, you can or cannot use this. It's a choice, and the states.
Hey, this is the standard that we want all the states to implement. You don't have to. We can't force you to use it. Like,
they literally can.
Child Left Behind, but most of you will, because we're the federal government in charge of this, and we're the ones that give you.
You're advocating for stronger state choice. The states are choosing to do something that you don't agree with, and so why would getting more state choice somehow make this better? I just don't understand the argument. Like, this, I'm not. How do we get from A to B here?
For this argument, if we said, Soy Pill, are there any? Can you imagine any enforcement, or are there any enforcement actions, or are there any incentives for these schools to adopt DOE standards?
I'm sure it's easier if you already have a curriculum that you don't have to invent yourself. I'm sure that you might get certain promotion from certain politicians if it's like, hey, I invented this. If you adopt this, I'll promote your mayoral thing. I'll promote your gubernatorial run. Like, yeah, I'm sure there's incentives. But to say, hey, just because there are incentives for this and it's bad, let's say it was good. Like, if it was good, would it be better? Like, if the outcome showed it was improving things, like, it's still a state choice. They don't have to do this. And you're arguing against getting rid of an institution that may or may not make it easier by making a standard, but that they're not enforcing. I don't understand how this somehow means we should get rid of the DOE. At the very least, this sounds like we should make a better Common Core. Like, that's as far as I can take your argument.
I do have a question, just real quick, because I just don't know, and maybe you guys can provide the answer. If a state does not participate in Common Core, do they not get funding from the federal government?
They still do.
Yeah, they still get funding.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I don't think there's any enforcement actions.
Punishment
for a
state to not use the Common Core?
Not
nothing in
directly.
law. The ways that they can withhold federal funding, well, for now, is if you are doing discriminatory practices in some way, shape, or form. If you're not, they have the maintenance of equity, which everyone's like, oh, they're doing DEI, but really this is just saying, hey, make sure the funds are getting properly distributed to lower income areas. That's when they can withhold funds. Although now the current DOE might implement rules that says, hey, if you give your funding to any illegal immigrant, we will completely revoke all federal funding until you fix that. Which, again, it's only 10%, but that's still a significant chunk, and they can start doing these sorts of enforcement mechanisms depending on what rules they implement. But it's not Common Core.
I do want to get some other people in and give some other people a chance. No, this is good back and forth, though. Stardust, and then LT, and that's where we'll start. Stardust, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I guess if we get rid of the Department of Education, a lot of these responsibilities, like others have said, are just going to be kind of pushed off onto another department. And I just want to know, one, which departments do you think are going to pick up the slack here? Two, do you think that this is going to be more effective than just having its own department dedicated to everything education? Keep in mind, this is the future of America, right? These are children. We are impacting the who these people are going to be in the future, and as a result, the future of our nation, right? Thirdly, are we just going to be overburdening other departments like the Department of Justice or whoever ends up picking up the slack when it comes to equal opportunity, things like that? And then what stops people from saying, oh, this is an inefficient department, why don't we just get rid of this department too, right? Where do we stop at that point?
So I mean, I'll let others go first, but if you want to.
If no one else has a response, take the response, right?
Yeah. So I think that we would create a several smaller offices, not full-on departments, that primarily handle the allocation of resources to states.
Yeah, wait, why is that different?
I'm going to jump in with an alternative suggestion. For instance, one of the things that we mentioned, one of the responsibilities the Department of Education has is to run a lot of studies around student outcomes. I would love to see the National Institute of Health take over that. I think that would be totally appropriate.
Then what happens when the NIH gets overburdened, and then people want to cut
we're slashing a lot of their funding and a lot of the we're slashing a lot of their grant programs as is. So I think refactoring those people to refactoring that infrastructure to take care of health outcomes inside of our schools specifically, given that we're not destroying the NIH already.
Yeah, it's like
why should they care about education research in general?
Because they care about gun violence research.
What's the first thing that you said, guys? Don't jump in.
Gun violence is directly related to public health, right? How much?
So is some public education.
Let
her fucking finish. You God damn it,
Ash! You gotta let her finish too. You interrupting by saying let her finish. Let her finish.
I can't hear the first thing that she's saying. That's the problem.
Stardust, go ahead.
Am I too quiet? What is going on here?
It was the first word that you were saying. There was a delay on it.
Okay. All right. Okay. So thank you, horsefucker. I appreciate it. I don't understand why, gun violence has a direct result on public health. Testing results I don't know how you would justify that to the Department of Health. In fact, I think that would be something that that Republicans and conservatives would look at the Department of Health doing and being like, they would be like, why is the Department of Health doing this? It would be another reason for people to cut more funding. I just don't understand what is, if we make a bunch of smaller offices, you're just making a bunch of small departments of education. I don't understand what is the point of this. There's no meaningful reason for us to be doing any of this. I don't understand it.
Yeah. So I think you gave the reason for that to begin with by mentioning, death by firearms is going to have an impact on, that's a matter of public health. I think that matters of public health have an impact on your test scores.
How does test scores have anything to do with whether you die?
You're matters of public health.
You're going to have to
matters of public health. I don't have to justify. No. matters of public health are going to have an impact on your test scores.
Sure, they
Yeah,
will,
but that's you got it backwards, Ash. You're saying, okay,
Yeah.
health affects test scores. Okay, health affects literally everything. Should everything fall under NIH research? Well, why does it even matter
None
if
of
the
these
research
falls under-
already? If the research already
treadmills fall under on NIH resource. Actually, I don't know if they did. Right, it might have been another department. Point being, I think that it's really not that far to bridge. Are there any public health concerns in here? What's her control group? Are there any differences between test scores that do not have these problems and test scores that do have these
I think
problems?
you're just making a different. This is just a
Yeah,
completely
that-
unrelated study that you would be having.
Yeah,
then. It's not
you're asking for an NIH
study?
health study on whether health affects test scores, not the test
No,
scores and the
I'm
results
not.
on. Then what do you? Okay, well,
Okay,
it doesn't
I wanna
matter. It doesn't
move
matter. Wait,
away-
hold on. It doesn't even
I
matter
wanna move
because
away
I
from
think we got off
the-
track.
whatever this is, okay? Because I don't.
Jeez, man.
wow, he left. That's so.
I'm
Well,
not sure. He'll be back.
2v2.
I'm
No,
No, I
he's
just
back.
want to get rid of the background noise.
I want to let me try to get us back on track a little bit, right? Let's say Trump does sign the executive order, and the Department of Education just goes away, right? What, in your opinions, will be the result of that, both for the states, for the economy, as well as for the children, and if it turns out that this is negatively affecting poor communities, special education, etc., what do we do to get it back, right? At what point do we admit that we did need the Department of Education? Go ahead.
Well, can I just ask real quick before we get into this? Do any of the people on the opposing side support getting rid of everything in the DOE?
No, not everything at the DOE.
Okay.
That's why for me I would prefer that it gets split into multiple departments so we can get rid of the entire functions that I think are detrimental because
Okay,
there's a lot of things
that.
that
What are the
as well.
detrimental functions?
So one, I think that in the long term, the facilitation of student loans through the Department of Education for higher education has been more of a net negative than a net positive. We're going to really see those effects in the next couple of years. I think that overall a national standard as far as like testing in education is a bad idea. So
wait, can we do this one by one? How have student loans been a net negative that we'll see in 10 years?
So the rate of the increase of costs for college have increased exponentially while the value of a degree has decreased in value.
Okay.
And that's directly causal basically with the government giving out student loans to practically anybody that wants it. It's basically like the perfect loan shark money venture, like guaranteed free money to basically turn these people into your little pay piggies for the rest of their lives.
Okay, but even okay.
Essentially,
Hold on. I was going to
it's
say.
essentially kind of like you flood the market with
go.
money and prices will increase.
No,
and also it dilutes the value that the Pell Grant gives, which is very, very important for low-income students, but it makes it so that low-income students can't qualify for as well or compete with the students that are more economically stable, because they have to take out larger loans, and when you take out larger loans, that means the value you get back from your degree gets siphoned out every single month.
So
plus
maybe I'm just
unemployment.
ignorant on this. I got a question. I don't think the Pell Grant needs paid back, does it? It's not a loan, as I understand.
No, what I'm saying is the Pell Grant's value is diluted because of how generous we are with giving out loans.
You're saying
to
that loans
college
make them
students.
increase tuition, and if Pell Grants don't increase at the same rate, then the Pell Grants won't be giving as much value, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Right. So Pell Grants are for low impoverished students. Student loans are for anyone who qualifies and applies for them. So even if I accepted the premise that the only reason tuition is as high as it is because of government funding, and specifically that from the DOE, which I don't think all of it is, why then should we get rid of the DOE? Which is, again, not your argument. It sounds like, hey, I think we should cut back on this, or we should reform potentially the student college tuition program, but that has nothing to do with whether or not we should abolish this completely. That is like a whole nother topic of how do we get tuition in check for college students and make college more affordable. That's not getting rid of the DOE. If you just axed all student loans and Pell Grants tomorrow, which is the majority of the $200 billion they spend every year, that would not suddenly drive tuition costs down overnight. That would take years to maybe readjust.
Actually, I think you would find that the costs would drop pretty dramatically. Because the thing is schools
more or less
charge
dramatically than Trump's stock market.
More dramatically than the stock market. I think we would see more than a 20% drop in tuition prices if people could all of a sudden not get student loans.
Why?
Because the schools are not making any money if they don't have any students in the school.
They'll still have students in the school. They'll just have more rich students in the school.
There's not enough rich students to make as much money as they have been making. And it's going to look bad. They're going to have tons of empty classes.
I mean, they literally have to put quotas on international students, which make triple the college tuition because there's too many of them. So they'd probably be able to fill the slots.
Yeah. Yeah, they'd be able to.
That's true. Foreigners would.
You would need an administration that's kind of concerned about any kind of foreign influence. Hey, you would kind of need, an administration that's concerned about foreign influence on American institutions. So you would have to pair these two policies together. That is true.
Wait, foreign? I don't think there's a lot of
foreign influence. You just mentioned international students. Why are you playing retarded?
No, I don't think that like if what I've been through the college system. I promise you, Chinese students don't like influence the college insofar as they get influenced by the college.
That they are. I'm mentioning an administration that's probably going to cut down on that would probably pair this policy with cutting down on the number of foreign students who could come in. And I'm not saying that's a good thing. When I did graduate, I graduated from a private school that probably had about half their population were international students. They were great.
No, I'm saying they already put quotas on the foreign students.
If the administration's goal is to drive down costs, they're not going to let an influx of foreign cash keep those tuition prices up.
No.
If they did, it would be disastrous.
If they want to drive down costs, yes. But if the college wants to replace the students that are being cut off when you get rid of the DOE and don't replace any of these grants, they will absolutely start supplanting those people with foreign students who pay triple the amount.
You would have to pair that with an administration policy that's preventing that.
They might even lower their standards to fill more slots, right? Because some of these college, well, then there you go, right? Like they'll lower their standards. They'll take more people who are rich. They'll take more people who are international students, and everybody else can get fucked.
People who are rich don't have problems going to college to begin with.
Okay.
Can I ask? Has everybody here are you guys making this up as you go along, or what is going on here?
No, I think we just had a miscommunication in that last part.
I'd say I have the whole thing typed up right in front of me.
Okay.
Well, I mean, your second argument was I don't want a national standard, which the DOE doesn't do. So, I mean, if you look into what the DOE does, you would know that it does not enforce a national standard for any sort of testing. That's another, I can see why she's asking that. It doesn't seem like you, yeah.
Well, they did, and then people realized that was a bad idea, and so they made it so that they couldn't do that.
Right, but if we're talking about the current, administration trying to get rid of it, if they went up and said, "Well, I think we should get rid of it because of this thing they haven't done in 10 years," what do you what do you on about?
Well, that's why I'm
10 years ago. They got 10 years ago.
Again, they got rid of that, and then they replaced it with the Common Core, which is functionally still
they
doing
did not replace it with the
thing.
Common Core, and they don't enforce Common Core. Those are both false statements. That's just not what the DOE does.
So let me give you the timeline, right? So Common Core starts in the early 2000s. They're basically giving funding differently based off of how people are grading in the different schools. The higher performers get more money, which was
Common Core did not exist in the early 2000s. You're thinking of No Child Left Behind.
Sorry, yes, that's what I meant. No Child Left Behind. Okay. My apologies. And then they basically were told, hey, it's now illegal for you to do this because we realize that's really bad to nationally enforce this. And so then the Common Core comes out literally a year or two after that, and they're like, well, we can't force you to do this, but here's the new national standard. Here's the curriculum that we want all the states to be implementing in all the classrooms all throughout the country. And if you don't,
So first of all, the DOE doesn't
can't
do
punish
what
you
you're
directly.
saying right now. They don't say, hey,
Yeah.
we want all of you to do this. Right now, the DOE, in its relation to Common Core, is funding research to see how the Common Core is doing and if there's a better version of that they can create. They don't create and enforce the Common Core. Also, the Common Core did not come after they made it illegal for the DOE to congressionally, put to this. It was before the ESSA even passed, I'm pretty sure. So I don't think your timeline's matching up, and it doesn't matter if they're not enforcing it. Like, again, you said there, and Ash said this is too. There are incentives, right? You have more resources if you use Common Core. Maybe it's easier for them to do this, but to say, okay, then get rid of the DOE because the states might be having some incentives to choose this, even though they don't need to. And if they're so good at doing this better, as per we can see in Arizona doing school choice, it's clearly not working out. Like, so I don't. Why does this mean we should have more state choice?
Because the states that perform well with their education do so due to their own policies and not because of federal initiatives. And to say that the Common Core, like, it's a federal initiative, Common Core, like the idea that the Department of Education doesn't want every single district in the country to adopt Common Core is just, it's honestly.
I'm sure they might want to do that, but that has nothing to do with to get rid of DOE.
Argument, you have to set a foundation for it. Sorry, what I was saying is, if you're going to make the argument that Common Core, like they want Common Core in every single home, and they're going to basically punish in some way, maybe not directly, but through other means. And
well, what other means? How
how
are they punishing these states?
That's what I'm saying is you have to make that argument from the ground up. You can't start with Common Core and then go.
Okay, do you want to make that argument?
No, definitely not.
Wait, are you on our side now? I'm confused.
Stardust. I want to hear what Stardust has to say. And I don't know what your mic's doing, Stardust, but it keeps cutting out.
Yeah, it clips a little bit.
Cutting out.
Yeah,
okay.
Clips, and I can't. That's why it's hard to.
Yeah, I need to fix that. I don't know. I apologize. I've been having tech problems all week. It is it's fatal. I have terrible. I just didn't get the gene for it or whatever. But so I don't understand. Like, what's his name? This dude, Mr. with the beard and glasses up here.
Ash.
Are you just here to critique are you here to critique the debates, or what is your, what do you think the Department of Education does? Like,
sorry, do you want to stick to one question?
I'm confused.
I guess I'm critiquing the debater again. I'm sorry. That was a good trap.
I'm confused what you're doing here. That's what I'm confused. I'm confused. Does anybody know why this guy is here? What is he doing here? Like, what is his argument? Like,
the thing I was doing 15 seconds ago was I just didn't want to loop again about Common Core and things like that. Like, if we're going to make an argument,
what is your argument?
If we're going to make an argument based on soft power,
we're not.
Right, and changes from enforcement, that I just want to do that from the top level.
Gelatinous Rube.
Yes.
You came in here to argue against the Department of Education. Give us your argument, because we've been over Deej's argument.
Mm-hmm.
Give us your argument for why we should get rid of the Department of Education. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll build off what I said at the beginning, where I view this as kind of a religious caste or a group of religious figureheads where they don't maintain any kind of responsibility for the increasing costs with relatively level and in some cases decreasing test scores. The fact that we can't hold them responsible for things that they're primarily responsible for indicates that they exist to more or less absorb issues into their department, and people's
okay, could you elaborate that? What are they responsible for that we can't hold them responsible for? Ignoring the whole religious caste thing.
Going back to the student loan program, the fact that they're just tossing out money however they want, and there's a ton of different schools that are maintaining or increasing their costs along with inflation. That's a severe problem. If this exists to make school more affordable, but it's actually just making it more expensive for everybody else, and on top of that, enslaving a large at this point, multiple generations of people.
I think he's referring to being in permanent and perpetual student loan debt.
We used to have usury laws for things like this.
Right, but
I
I know it's a metaphor.
This is
just
not,
try to keep up.
But Ash, is this really a argument against the DOE, or are you just saying, hey, we should have more restrictions on how these loans are given out? Like Pell Grants are pretty well means tested for, you know, income and disparity, these sorts of things. And you say, hey, we should be more careful about how we give these loans out. I might be fully on board, but what you're saying is get rid of the DOE.
We should be more careful. What I said is that we should hold the people responsible for exponentially increasing the cost of education responsible for it.
Okay, but is the way we hold them responsible shutting down the whole department?
It could
If
be.
it's a smaller department, it's a lot easier to do that. You're like, you failed.
It's
you
the
suck, you're
first of all,
fired.
it's the smallest cabinet department. It has 4,000 employees. Okay, so like we can barely make it as small as it is. We could make it into 400
employees is quite a few, actually,
for like hundreds of millions of students.
I just don't understand. You're letting them all go, and you're just that's not holding anybody responsible. They go and find other jobs. I feel, right? Like,
I didn't say that we should kill them, right? I didn't say that was holding them responsible.
I didn't kill them either. Wait,
I feel like you were implying.
If anything, is what she's saying is would it not be holding them responsible to say, hey, you guys have failed in your mission to drive down the costs of tuition. You're just inflating this for everyone. Why don't we get some reform in here, punish the people who implemented these policies, and try to make this better?
What does reform mean?
I don't know. I don't know because I haven't debated how I should fix the cost of college and if it's primarily driven by student loans. But if this was the case, if I just took you at face value, I'd say, hey, look, you're giving these loans out too frivolously. We need to reevaluate how these loans are given out. Not, hey, I'm firing all of you. I'm not going to replace you. Get fucked anyone else who wants a student loan. Like this is what I'm saying.
I'm not really looking to negotiate with these people who have exponentially increased the cost of education.
Okay, so we should fire them all.
No, so when you say reform, it implies that the institution has some legitimacy and didn't just put tons of children in debt for the rest of their lives. That's more than just a simple institutional failure.
I'm sorry. We're tying the entire institution. If any student is
bad. We'll say they're 18. They're okay.
No, like Wick, I understand his argument that, like, yeah, student loan debt is one of the worst forms of debt. I think it's one of the ones that isn't even erasable by death or bankruptcy. Excuse me, not death, but. Yeah, that's bad. But to say then we should get rid of the DOE, get rid of all of it. Like, first of all, you can look at the spending, and yeah, Pell Grants and student loans are the biggest chunk of that spending. But then to say, well, you know, the much less costs, which are enforcing anti-discrimination practices and anti-disability practices in schools across the country, we should get rid of that because student loans are not the way I want them to be. Like, do you see what I'm saying? Like, if you want to reform student loans, that's one thing. Huh?
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. You can't hold one of the largest groups of debt in the American public, especially for young people. You can't shield that with anti-discrimination practices. That's
what do you mean shield it? It's not shielding it if you reform it, right?
No. If you say we can't do this because we're going to remove the anti-discrimination practices, then you're shielding it.
Well, hold on.
Why did you bring it up otherwise?
Because you've created this false dichotomy where the only things we can do to fix the student loan problem, accepting that it even is a problem, is fire everyone in this entire department. And instead of, hey, what if we reform? What if we, and I won't want to do this, we could just fire and get rid of the DOE's student loan function and then say, okay, keep all the other stuff. That could be a thing. And maybe that's even what Deej is suggesting. Like, I don't know. Like, hey, we'll split this up. The anti-discrimination thing goes here. But like, what is, like, again, what is this to? Like, oh, you can either fire them all or not reform it.
Why wouldn't you want to get rid of those people? Because that will influence my answer later.
Which the student loan people?
Yeah, like assuming that there's like one.
Like every single person that manages and gives out student loans, you want to get rid of, or do you mean the people that made the decisions that you are saying leads to bad outcomes with college tuition?
Yeah, no, it's that debate. That debate is why reform is totally impossible here, because you're going in and saying, well, this guy did this guy actually sign off on the loan, or was he just sending an email about it? That's why reform is impossible. That's why things like RICO charges exist. You're part of a effectively criminal organization. We need to get rid of you because we want to disincentivize this behavior in the future. Sorry, go ahead.
Are we doing Nuremberg trials for like student loan people now? Like,
he said he didn't want to kill them.
That would be the moderate position. I'm advocating that we get rid of all of them.
The Sally Mae trials, like I don't know.
That would be amazing.
So you're doing the whole like, oh, there's no such thing as like
Yeah.
just a guy following orders. He helped administer the student loan, so we need to
Fuck 'em.
punish
This guy
all
gave
of
out
them.
a Pell Grant. Fucking get him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Hold on, just to Steelman a little bit and help
Okay.
Ash out. Okay, I'm gonna help Rube out.
What do you mean,
What
Steelman?
he's saying.
What is the value? What is the value of being
He's
in
not gonna
debt
let
for the
you
rest
wait.
of your life? It's very simple. Yeah, get out of here.
Fair enough.
I'm kidding.
Okay.
Do
Go
your
ahead.
thing. Good luck.
Unless somebody can
Deez
answer
Deez
that.
is raising his hand. Go ahead, Deez.
So if I could actually go back to the question you asked Wick about what happens when the DOE is killed, like Trump just axes it. What I would like is a world where the federal government gives funding to the states based off of their student size, and every single state is all trying different things, and what works and what doesn't work, and people can get mad at their local politicians and elect new people when they want to see change. What I think will happen with the Department of Education being killed is largely something similar to that. States are going to be like, oh crap, we now have to come up with our own initiatives and our own programs. And I think that as a whole, there will be an American groundswell and renaissance of people caring more about what's going on inside of their children's classrooms. And hopefully the government ends up finding a new way to appropriate funds to states for it. And
one way to ease the transition would just be to pass universal school choice.
Well, I want to get to the school choice thing, but it sounds like we're in this fantasy land where if we literally axed the DOE and did not replace it, first of all, I want to make it clear, like if you ask Linda McMahon about this, like she does not have a solution, and they're thinking of getting rid of this as early as like Thursday with an EO. But I think her direct quote is, I'm not, like in regards to IDEA, I'm not sure it's better served in Health and Human Services, she said 3 weeks ago, but I don't know. Because they really don't know. They don't really care about replacing these programs, so let's just assume they all just go away. So then we're going to disadvantage millions of students for however long it takes for states to figure out, like, you guys are libertarians, like, you're with me on this. How fucking fast and how slow and inefficiently is the bureaucracy of a state going to create an entire program to catch up with this spur-of-the-moment executive order to replace disability and impoverished student funding? Like, we're just going to fuck all these people over in the meantime.
I'm going to let you answer that, but $5 from Glitterbell to say, WhickTV, please tell my conservative bromance to get a hair tie. I don't know which one you're referring to, but fair.
He has a L'Oreal commercial. He doesn't need it. He's beautiful.
Answer the question, LT. Go ahead.
I want to say we already have protections for disabled students and others at the federal level as is. That's has to be enforced at the state level. So like I really don't understand the whole fear of pushing that, or if we get rid of this department, all of a sudden
I'm talking about the funding.
Revert to like
First of all, the enforcement could go away. I'm talking about the funding first, and then we can talk about whether or not, if this department, which one of its responsibilities is to protect these two groups, if that suddenly is like, hey, states, figure it out on your own. I mean, like, good fucking luck getting every state to agree on the same protections, but maybe they'll all just be nice about it and all do what the federal funding is, because that's not really what they did with abortion, so I would be doubtful. But I'm talking about the funding. You're cutting this funding off for some period of time until these states, like Dee said, replace this with their own program. How fucking slow is that going to be? You guys are libertarians. You understand this is not going to be efficient. You're going to disadvantage. Like, what are these disabled kids supposed to do in the meantime when you cut, like, day one, all of their stuff until they replace this by the state level?
That's how you pass universal school choice, giving parents the money and allowing them to choose the schools that they want.
Okay,
under your system, I'm curious. Under your system, can a private school say, we don't have the facilities to serve special education students, so we are not going to accept any?
It's already illegal under federal laws. Like, a lot of buildings to code need to be made to serve handicapped people.
No, I'm not talking about they can't be there.
We're talking about special education, people with developmental disabilities, right? Do they have what if
a curriculum, a teacher, etc., right?
A lot of private schools don't, actually. What if they don't have the resources or the teachers to teach people with developmental disabilities?
Parents are paying for it and there's a demand for it. Why wouldn't the school have it?
if it's just one, if it's one parent or two parents out of the entirety of the school, yeah, they're not going to pay for it. They're going to be like, yeah, we don't have the facilities for this. Go find somebody else.
Yeah, my back question
That's
exactly
because
that is
that's
if the incentive for the school is it saves us money to not give a class to a disabled student, why the fuck would they do it?
Well, if you have, like, say you have one disabled person in an entire town, right?
Yeah.
Under universal school choice, that parent is still going to get the same amount of money, so they can just hire a private tutor or somebody for that child.
Oh my fucking god! Because that's so. What fucking Candyland Okay, go like this is like Somalia libertarian Candyland, where it's like, well, they'll just free market will take care of it, as if like when we didn't have these protections, there weren't a fucking million people falling through the cracks, not getting the protections they need. Like, oh, they'll just get a private tutor. Oh, just go to a different bakery. What's wrong with segregation? You can just go to a black business. Like, this is fucking ridiculous.
How much a private tutor is going to cost? Like, especially when we're talking about somebody who's going to be with that person for as long as school hours are there, is somebody who's going to cover all subjects, somebody who's qualified to even teach this person, qualified to work with somebody with developmental disabilities and possible physical disabilities too, right? Like, it's going to cost much more than that voucher.
Yeah, states can also chip in as well. Just as they do now.
Okay, so
I don't agree with the premise that if the Department of Education gets axed, that all of a sudden these laws that have appropriated funds are going to all of a sudden just like stop having funds going to the states.
You're right. They're not going to disappear overnight. The idea is congressionally mandated. Now, that hasn't stopped the Trump administration from putting these funds out in the past. They had to have the Supreme Court tell them to actually give them out for U.S. aid. But you're right. It wouldn't disappear day one.
And the thing is if this program is as popular as we say it is, which I agree, I think it's extremely popular, it's probably something that will very quickly get rectified by the House. A smaller...
But then why get rid of it?
...office might be... Because you don't need 4,000 employees to administrate...
How do you know?
...these funds. Do
you know what each of those 4,000 employees does? Do you even know how much they're paid?
Well, I don't know exactly.
Okay, they're paid around $200 million in administrative costs. So if you think that's too much, maybe it is. But the fact that you're like, we don't need it when you have no idea what each... I don't know, to be fair. I do not know what H4... I'm sure maybe you could cut it in half and maybe be fine. But to say it like so assuredly when you have no fucking idea is ridiculous. Like, I don't know what they do, but maybe they do need them. Maybe there's some bloat and waste. But hey, let's axe all 4,000 of them and hope that a replacement comes quickly is a ludicrous suggestion.
See, but here's the thing about like what I'm proposing with what would happen. When you have smaller offices, it's easier to say, hey, this office isn't performing very well. We're going to replace the people that are in charge of this office without having to, like...
Okay, so why not have one office per person, and every single person gets one office? We could do a performance review on a person-by-person basis on every single office. Each of them has a single student or maybe 10 students assigned to them. Like, why not just stratify it into this, like, objectively tiny... Like, it just doesn't make any fucking sense. It's the smallest cabinet. Yeah, why don't they do that?
There's a certain point where you like lose efficiencies. Like there's a balance, right?
Like, do you know what that balance is? Because right now you're very assuredly... I don't know what the balance is. I want to clarify. I'm not an expert on this, but you are very assuredly, maybe you can convince me otherwise, that 4,000 is too much, and you're not telling me why.
I think that there is no possible way that we will be able to find out what that balance is, so long as the Department of Education has a mandate as broad as it has. And I think that that's the whole point of returning a lot of these things to more state functions, is that when you have more parallel processes running, trying different things, you get more testing and you find out what works and what doesn't work a lot faster than when you try to do it from just one high-level branch.
Okay, I wanna give a chance for Stardust to get in there, and I know Gelatinous Rube wants to say some things. So after those two go, I have some super chats to read. And then I have a question for the panel. Sound good? Good. And get your super chats in, gang. Give me more of your money, right? I am only one employee. I'm a centralized figure. I'm the smallest. So apparently, according to this panel, I'm the most efficient. So give me your
so I'm trying to look into this, but it seems like states already, they do significantly... It's like a relatively small amount of research into education in comparison, like with the federal government, the Department of Education. So we would just be like axing all of this research that they do on education, and just expecting the states to make it up for whatever reason. Already majority of the decisions that are made about schools are already made at the state and the local level. Again, like these federal standards are not even like enforced. So I don't understand why should we expect the states to pick up research into education? Why should we expect the states to pick up any of these like standards that we have? We already have states where there are massive differences in education level, and I don't think it's a good thing for us to create an even bigger difference in that education level, given that we have like American citizens who move around. Like why would you create a system that's already has such disparate differences in different areas and make those differences even worse?
And one last thing, why would 50 individual states all doing individual research and then trying to pool it together somehow be more efficient than one thing doing all of it?
Well, so on the research topic, the reality is the Department of Education's research has never proven to be effective compared to private research. I mean, even the small amount of funding that private research gets in like education shows worlds better performance than what we end up seeing
an
from.
Example of that? I'm just curious. Can you give an example of that, of a private research into education outperforming the DOE's research into education? Can you give a comparison?
So like things like a lot of private schools, a lot of Montessori schools, like a lot of kind of alternative education pathways that people go by. A lot of homeschool research shows a lot of really promising outcomes.
Well, hold on. Wait, there's a very big difference between because he's not understanding the question. I think what he's asking is the research from a private school better than the research from the public institution? Now, you can say that the private schools have better outcomes, which I think no one here would contest, because those have more wealthy people who are seeking out that education specifically. They have smaller class sizes, more resources. Of course, they're going to perform better than public schools. We're asking whether or not the research from a private institution is somehow better.
So the thing is that the problem we have right now isn't actually whether or not we're having enough research into education. It's being able to test that research, right? Because a lot of times we're looking at these, hypothetical, theoretical frameworks for teaching children what we think that they should know. And that's one of the benefits of if you have a bunch of states trying a lot of these different things. Some are going to adopt different methods than others. When you have the entire country adopting one method, you can only be trained, getting data on one method at a time. The Common Core research looked really promising. It looked like it was going to theoretically revolutionize children's ability to take tests and also understand what it is that they were learning. We're saying from the empirical data that it's not. So now we have to wait for the federal government to do their research and come up with a new alternative or enhancement when we could have had that been happening 50 times at more micro scale.
Wait, well, nothing's stopping them from researching or doing an alternative. Sorry, go ahead, Star.
To reiterate Soypill's point, I think it's a very good point. How is it going to be more efficient to pool all of this data from 50 different states on a smaller scale versus having a larger institution conducting this and figuring out what we need, right? It makes it's not more efficient.
Because the state of Utah, for example, can look at states with similar demographics that are getting better educational outcomes, see what it is that they're doing, and then try and adopt and apply the things that they're doing in their education system.
Well, nothing's stopping them from doing that right
now. Well, what's stopping them from doing that is that it's a lot safer for all the elected positions and all the board officials to just do what the standard that the federal government has put out as hey, this is the standard for America.
If this alternative was so much better, would they not have secured every future election by showing just how much better their state is in educational performance?
Okay, we do got it. We're circling the drain on this just a little bit, and I do want to get Ash in here again, Gelatinous Rube, and then I do have to get to the super chat. So Gelatinous Rube, go ahead.
We can't hear you.
We can't hear you.
Go to somebody next, because I'm deciding whether to circle back to an earlier point or doing.
I'll just read the super chats then and make a little money.
I appreciate it.
So first of all, gang, thank you for the super.
I like your pen wave, by the way. Your little, nice touch there.
Okay,
Yeah.
$5 from Deej Nuts. Thank you for $5. Freedom Gang. Thank you. Yeah, Freedom Gang indeed. That's what we are here. $10 from Psychonaut. You earned it, Wick. Yes, I did. Okay. Tier 2 member for 13 months. Honkler. Nice to see you. Just wanted to say that the thumbnail. Excuse me, gang. Just wanted to say that the thumbnail is mega.
Nope,
Soypill made it.
No, I did not
Yes.
make it. My friend, the soy sauce moniker, made that, so you can thank her.
Oh,
But,
well,
yeah. She
Soypill
does all my
gave it-
thumbnails. If you like my thumbnails, go to my channel, thesoypill.com, and look at all of them.
Okay. $5 from Feder Methodist. Grindcore is greater than Common Core.
True. That's true. I agree with that.
$10 from Gregio. Right now, special education students can get speech, vision, counseling, OT, PT, and even home training for parents provided by the school district. Would private schools provide those as well under school choice?
That's all. That's just provided by the state, regardless, public or private. But under school choice, public schools still exist. You're just allowed to choose what school you want to go to.
It's also not, regardless, provided if you get rid of the DOE, which is what provides it. So
$10
That
from
money is still
Psychonaut.
coming from the Fed, which gets sent to the state, and then the state disperses it.
I think it's
The
reasonable
DOE is
to
really just like a
ask about,
middleman
like, a
there.
situation where there's
No,
no money coming in for these programs to begin with. I don't think
I
that
wanna interrupt
replacements are
Superchats.
coming for them.
Okay, $10 from Psychonaut. You have a weird tingle in your right hand. Should we lose the whole arm without doing any searching? I don't know. Whose arm is it?
I think that's an allegory for the DOE.
Yeah. Let's just
Jake?
cut it all off.
Jake and Bake for $10. I appreciate the negative's ability to demonstrate the ludicrousness of cutting the Department of Education, but this should not be up for debate. This is like taking a flat earther seriously in a scientific debate. So, the topic is up for debate because it's being debated. So whether we like it to be up for debate or not, here we are.
Yeah, that this was proposed by the soy pill. So I don't know. Like, it has been an entertaining debate at least, but like at the same time, yeah, I tend to agree with the chatter on this one.
Look,
When in doubt, consider the people you disagree with to be flat earthers. It's a wonderful strategy.
$10 from Ren. No one is against increasing efficiency, but that's not the prompt. Bloated college admin costs are an issue, but targeting the DOE for sole blame is a mistake. Thank you for the $10.
How about our administrators responsible for administrative costs?
Crazy, I know. Well, to get us back on track. So this is related to Department of Education, but this has been brought up about America's, frankly, well, let me ask this to get us a baseline. Who would agree with this statement? Just raise your hand if you agree with this statement. The United States education system is failing its students.
Depends on what metric, but sure.
Okay.
Yeah, in some
Everyone
areas, yes.
but Ash. Everyone but the Latin troop. Wonderful.
It's too broad.
If whether you think it's getting rid of the DOE, reforming the DOE, add more funding to the DOE, what will fix this problem? How can America get back on track when it comes to education? Go ahead.
I'll
Are
make the
we-
argument that makes all the
sorry.
libertarians happy, which is you just dump a bunch of money into it and don't ask questions about where it goes. You just drive a pile of money up to every single school. No, like actually though, I think that if you incentivize better teachers, if you have better programs, like some of these things that the Title I funding goes to, you can see the outcomes, not necessarily in test scores, but like I said, like reduce crime, reduce poverty, because you are incentivizing kids to stay in school with better programs, with better teachers, with smaller class sizes. Yes, you can't just dump money on a problem, but if you use this money in ways that mean, get incentivize better teachers by paying them more, by decreasing class sizes so people can focus, by having more fun electives, alternatives, wood shop, car stuff, the sort of stuff that people really enjoy, that is what gets kids to stay in school, to learn more, to have better teachers, to get, this sort of stuff happening. And cutting the DOE has nothing to do with any of that because they don't decide how any of that works. That's a state level.
Anyone?
So, are we talking like what we think is realistic, or what would be in an ideal world?
Let's deal in the realistic. Okay.
Okay.
Let's not go to fairyland quite yet.
So, I think so long as the Department of Education exists and we maintain the status quo, nothing will really ever change. It just won't. I think that realistically, what actually has to happen is parents need to take a little bit more responsibility, and local people need to take a bit more responsibility for their children's and students' education. And I think that the Department of Education is a roadblock in that. I think that it highlights a high level ownership shift of a child's education from the local to the federal. And even if a lot of the functions are still run by the states and local districts, the perception is that like when a state adopts the Common Core, they adopt that as this is the federal like way of learning. And I think that the Department of Education getting completely nuked is at the very least going to be a catalyst that could change that. Might make things worse. It could make things better. Change always is a double-edged sword.
Anyone else with thoughts on this?
When you say parents need to take more responsibility, what do you mean?
I mean, just go on r/teachers or r/students.
Don't ever tell me to go on Reddit. Don't say that to me.
It's a meme that, as a general rule, it used to be that parents were on the side of teachers. And I mean, this is a little bit of glorifying the past, right? But I think it is anecdotally and demonstrably true from everyone's like universally life experiences that students nowadays are the worst they've ever been, and teachers can't control them, and parents aren't bothering to control them, and the amount of time that parents are spending teaching or helping their kids with schoolwork at home is at an all-time low. And
why would cutting the DOE help this?
Because there will be a major shake-up in education, and you're going to have a lot of parents that are like pro DOE, make good education for their children their sole mission in life, and they're going to spend a lot more time, like it's a kind of like a lucky outcome, right? But they'll spend a lot more time thinking about their kids' education. And likewise, you're going to have MAGA types that are like, yeah, the DOE's gone, now we can do whatever we want teaching our kids. And at the end of the day, like,
wait, hold on. I have to pause you. Your argument is that if we get rid of the DOE, parents that are already negligent of their children will suddenly become less negligent.
Sometimes that happens. I think you would be surprised.
Do you think that will be a majority of negligent parents will suddenly start giving a shit just because the DOE is gone? Most of these people who probably don't even know what the fuck the DOE is are going to suddenly, oh, I really need to care about my kids' education now. I'm going to stop giving them their iPad and pay attention to their homework. Like,
I think
how does this have anything to do with the DOE?
I think it is definitely possible that this level of shakeup would result in a non-insignificant portion of the population doing that.
Okay, I want to give it to Stardust. Go ahead.
We need to take a step back here and ask why are negligent parents, why are they negligent with their kids when it comes to school or other things? Like what are the surrounding reasons of why they are negligent? Is it just that they don't care? Or is it just that the Department of Education exists and they're so demoralized over the Department of Education that they choose that, oh, this is just like completely useless for me to be invested in? Or could it be other things that they are reasons why they are negligent with their children?
I think that we're a much more nihilistic society than we have been in the past, and I think that parents are a lot more distracted by things like politics, their own entertainment.
They're all watching Rick and Morty
in the past as well. A lot of them are watching Rick and Morty.
It couldn't possibly be that, like, I don't know. I feel like people are negligent with their children for a lot of reasons, and most of the time, I'm going to say 99% of the time, it's probably not to do with the existence of the Department of Education. It probably has to do more with how they're stretched thin, whether they're stretched thin in their personal lives, whether they're on drugs, whether they're just they're not good people.
Well, Star. If we cut the funding to the impoverished students, their parents will then have more time and money to care for their kids.
That's so true. That is actually so true. Yeah, they'll have more time and money, and they'll have more teachers and resources available to them that they can take advantage of. Yeah, that's totally what's going to happen.
I don't think the issue is actually.
I just got to say this because like people are asking, well, why are students the worst nowadays? Why are students so bad nowadays, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Gang, it's social media.
It's your
cell
dog.
phones. It's all this. Well, not my dog. My dog. Don't you dare say a fucking bad word about my dog. I will find you.
We're gonna
Anyway,
put
To be
your
fair,
dog
if
on
she was in a
trial
classroom,
and
I would get
murder.
nothing done, Wick, because she's so
true,
cute.
fair enough. But here, look at it. At the end of the day, we have studies after studies after studies how social media, how cell phone use, screen time has had very detrimental effects on children, from increasing self-harm to further atomizing society. Why do we think it would have no effect on education? And I would posit perhaps that until we do something about the prolific use of phones and social media at school, nothing you guys suggest or talk about today will
I think it starts earlier, Wick. I think it starts earlier. I think when you have a bunch of young children, like preschool age or younger children, a lot of parents, especially mothers, they get overwhelmed dealing with these kids, and it's easier to put them in front of a laptop, or not even a laptop, put them in front of an iPad, give them an iPad, and then go do your thing in the other room, take care of dinner, or do something like that. It's just so much easier for these parents, I think. I think also still we have like labor division in the home when it comes to domestic duties is still, unequal. And we've got parents who both go out equally and work as much as each other, but one comes home and has significantly more domestic duties to pick up with, right? So it's like a multi-pronged issue. And yeah, when you're exhausted in all these other ways, you just want a break. You're not going to have a problem giving your kid an iPad and letting them scroll through YouTube Kids and whatever garbage they have on YouTube Shorts right now. So, yeah.
The thing that I do find fascinating about that, between like, the iPads and all that, with like Gen X and early millennials, we were dropped in front of the TV, and that was sort of our babysitter while our moms went in the other room, cooked dinner, took care of some things and whatever. So how come with the advent of like, the iPads and the cell phones and all that, does that correlate with the increasingly bad behavior of students in schools?
Because you can't take a TV into the classroom.
It's much more interactive. It's not like flipping between channels, right? Before we were sitting in front of TVs flipping between channels, what was on, right? Now with kids, they have like the entirety of the internet at their hands, and your screen, not only are you staring at your screen, you're actually interacting with it. It's designed in a way to be intuitive to human psychology and
literally
like
addictive,
what is most natural.
Yeah.
And so
I
you've
could
got
bring a TV into my classroom, right?
Yeah.
Well,
That was
and
like the best time in the classroom. TV time with the videos.
Oh,
It's
okay,
not
so
even-
forget that, right?
You start a habit with young children having this incredibly interactive device that is, again, designed for human nature in the way that it interacts with you, and yeah, it's hard to break that habit when they've been doing it since they were like in preschool, right? Like why would they focus their effort or their attention at one thing when they can, again, scroll through TikTok or YouTube Shorts or whatever is available to them, right? So, and why would parents make their kids do anything other than that, right? Like, people, again, are very selfish in the moment. So, yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, what type of content you're observing on the screen matters more than the screen itself. But I think getting back to like the Department of Education conversation, the whole reason why I think that getting rid of the DOE can be good is that it's the type of political catalyst that can cause reforms in people's personal lives and also across the entire nation. And so at the current rate we're going, it's never going to get better. It might stay the same. It's probably going to get worse.
Can I just say I disagree vehemently on this? Hey, parents, again, who are negligent with their children are not doing it because the Department of Education exists or doesn't exist. And the existence of the Department of Education isn't going to impact whether they're negligent or not. They're still going to go out to parties. They're still going to go do drugs. They're still going to be emotionally unavailable for their kids. They're still going to be stretched thin if they're not all of those other things. They're still going to be stretched thin going between jobs, being a single parent. I don't understand like why the Department of Education is somehow going to shake somebody up into becoming more present in their child's lives when people who people form their personalities by a certain age, and it's very hard for them to change their habits. If they're emotionally unavailable to everybody in their life, including their children, why would all of this sudden this Department of Education that doesn't impact them whatsoever on a personal in their personal lives on a daily basis, that being gone, why would that change their personality fundamentally? It wouldn't.
How
I'd like to
many?
piggyback off that point for a sec, just briefly, because I think Starbucks. I think Starbucks is right, and I think that there's a lot of been a lot of smoke screening. Pardon?
You can just call me Star.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I think there's been a lot of smoke screening. This kind of dovetails with the discussion of disabled students around, like, well, the problem's going to get solved. I think at the end of the day, the hope for a lot of these people, or at the very least the outcome, is that the inattentive students and who are children of inattentive parents are going to be less able to participate with their fellow students and have less opportunity, probably not going to get those, greater vouchers, whatever have you, to go to schools with more attentive parents and more attentive communities. I think that they are going to slip through the cracks. I think you should be ready for that. It sucks. I think it's worth it. Absolutely. I think it's absolutely worth making sure that good students no longer have to deal with people who can't speak the language or are generally antisocial or causing problems, starting fights in class. I think it's totally fine for those students to have to be secluded somewhere else. I think it sucks. I think you have to be prepared to accept if the Department of Education goes away. I don't think that those people, it's possible that those people get services, but that's not going to be the default state of affairs.
How is that
So-
going to
I mean,
impact?
wait, yeah, that kind of just
hold on.
he just said it.
Stardust. Hold on. Stardust first. Stardust, go ahead.
Yeah. Yes. How is that going to impact, like, for example, crime stats later on, right? We know that kids who don't have a lot going on in their lives, kids who don't have like a strong community around them, a great way to meaningfully and positively impact a kid's life if they have inattentive or negligent parents is to have a community around them that can sometimes pick up the slack. It's never going to replace a parent, right? It's never going to replace a negligent parent, but it is going to, in some ways, at least like supplement what maybe they can't get from their parents, right? I think that what you're saying, what you're proposing, that we're just going to have to accept that some of these kids are going to slip through the cracks and they're all going to be concentrated maybe in one area. Like, I don't think that's a good solution. We know that kids, and for example, in towns who don't have anything to do, end up getting into trouble. We know that kids that don't have after school programs end up getting into more crime and things like that. The amount of schooling that a child has can very directly impact future crime stats, and we should be taking that very, very seriously, because that is is beyond just that's beyond just education. That's a public health and public safety impact into the future. So I don't think
it is, and that's why I don't want any of them in classes with normal students. I don't want to increase the risk that those normal students who otherwise may never have faced physical violence in their entire lives, except for in their class, I don't want to subject them to that.
Okay,
and
so
that does increase the chances that stuffing a bunch of criminals together is going to have a bad impact.
We need to pause here. Children don't come out of the womb as criminals because their parents are negligent. They're not even criminals. They're not even criminals until they get later on. They get older into their childhood, and they maybe do something that they shouldn't have been doing. They get into something. They be somewhere that they shouldn't have been. Right. Most of the time, like having some problem kids grouped in with a bunch of other students isn't going to negatively impact the other students that much. In fact, it teaches these students
that much. That's the problem.
Wait a minute. Let me finish. Okay, let me finish because I'm not finished. Okay, it we need to have the ability to teach students, teach children that they need to be able to get along with and tolerate people in their adult lives that they're not going to want to, right? Like, otherwise they're going to go out into the real world. They're going to encounter people who have difficult personalities, and they're not going to know how to interact with them or deal with them or how to de-escalate a situation. This is life. Real life has people that we don't want to interact with all the time. Real life has as a female, real life has you will walk down the street and encounter people who make comments at you, and maybe you won't know what to do with that. And I would rather a young woman have been exposed to people who have difficult personalities and have learned from an early age how to de-escalate, and other people around her learn how to de-escalate these things, than her being in a completely foreign environment where she doesn't know what to do. So it's like these problem kids are not going to turn the good kids into criminals. They are just going to be in good communities. They're just going to be in good communities where they have an opportunity to maybe make good friends, make friends with people who have good parents, who can have. Sorry, I'll wrap it up, Wick.
Yeah, land the plane.
Who will have a positive impact on them, even if their family lives and their parents don't have positive impacts on them.
Okay. Respond,
sorry,
and then we're going to get into other people.
Can I also say, wait,
that's totally
really quick point?
I don't think that. Yeah, just briefly.
Well, you say some students will slip through the cracks. These programs are helping millions of students. So if they go away, this is millions of students that are slipping through the cracks, just to be clear. And I don't necessarily agree with Star's point on the students, disabled students, low-income students, Title I students.
Exposing children to being catcalled to make them able to.
Okay, I'm not saying catcall, but I'm saying there's a different. Okay, I'm not saying exposing young
girls.
Hold on,
don't fucking straw man it.
I'm saying like there is a similarity in the way that you deal with a kid who is making problems in your classroom, who's being too loud or being kind of a dick, and somebody who's being a dick on the street, right? If you don't know how to deal with somebody being a dick, then you're kind of like going to be lost in real life, right? I'm not saying like that. Yeah. Don't put words in my mouth, Wick. Okay, I'm not okay with that.
Yeah,
all right.
No, I don't think that you're saying anything out of the ordinary. It's just
you, Wick. Okay, I will debate you, and I will make you cry. Okay, so
usually I got to pay for that, but go ahead, Ash.
Please. I don't think that you're saying anything out of the ordinary there. But again, I'm going back to actual criminality. Making children suffer acts of criminality inside of their classroom is where I'm very, very happy to draw the line.
I'm asking for you to put like a felon in their classroom with them. I'm not telling you to take somebody out.
It's that much that we're going back to. It's like, well, it was only one instance of it's only one assault. It's only one theft. It's only one, taking a photo up the skirt or something like that. Hold on. I've let you go for quite a while now. I'm just going to wrap this up. It's totally unacceptable to ask these children to force them in with people who will harm them in ways that they otherwise might not be harmed for the rest of their entire lives. That's a very easy, simple line to draw that does have a severe impact on the rest of their lives. If you get assaulted while you're in school, that has a strong impact on the rest of your life.
Why?
You have things stolen from you.
If
you are sexually assaulted, as is pretty common throughout the American education
is the implication that the DOE funding to the Title I students is forcing all these non-problem students to be assaulted by, like, why do we then have to get rid of all the money?
Claim.
Okay, but then what are you arguing? What are you arguing in regards to DOE funding?
Can you summarize the argument that I gave you a couple minutes ago?
It sounds like you're saying that, we shouldn't be forcing integration between problem students and regular students, right? And I agree. As someone who's went through a pretty problematic school life, it did inhibit my learning. I understand that. But I don't think that means we should cut all funding with Title I funding. Like, what does that... Or if you're not saying that, then why are you even talking about it?
The argument that I made, which wasn't even an argument, I was clarifying somebody else's, is I said that, hey, people are saying that there's going to be programs to pick up the slack for these people, and I'm saying I don't think that's necessarily going to be the case. I think that
well then you agree with me.
Yeah, but he's saying that's a good.
In which way?
No, he's saying it's a good thing. I'm saying it's a bad thing. But we are agreeing on what will happen.
It's a good thing. I don't think it's good to collect a bunch of criminals in one place. That's not good or healthy for them. It is Better. It is better than collecting them with a bunch of relatively harmless or otherwise.
Well,
Hold on, just to be clear.
Why would any teacher want to work with a classroom full of 8-year-old dickheads? Okay, like we should have them mixed together.
Okay, if an adult can't deal with it, then the 8-year-old not dickheads should not have to deal with it.
We don't put them.
If you think otherwise, you should be put in prison.
Right? Like.
Sorry, what did you say?
Unless they get into like actual criminal activity, we're not putting a bunch of 8-year-old dicks in one spot, right? I'm just saying, like, we're gonna be people who are distracted.
Is this Epstein Island?
Yeah.
Hey, hold on, we're not going there. Finish up Stardust, and then we gotta get some more people.
Yeah, there are gonna be people who are distracting in your classes, and people who are dicks, and like in a local level in a school, like, or people who are in your same class who are dicks, right? On the school level, you can put people in different classes based on like their achievement, right? It doesn't. You don't have
nothing to do with what I was describing earlier.
You don't have to force people but you're talking about exposing people.
You guys' chat messages are fucking killing me. Keep it up.
If you get all of these kids.
So why are you talking about it when I'm talking about kids getting assaulted? Why are you bringing that up?
I don't understand what you're talking about, because if we address it from
you mean the word assault? Do you mean the word?
Hold on, stop.
How
you guys
can I
are
explain
missing
this
each other.
for you?
Let me bridge this gap. You guys are totally missing each other.
Primary school, like preschool, there are studies on preschool that show like it very much impacts a kid's future. Like, I don't know, like.
Okay.
I'm not arguing against preschool.
You guys are missing each other. I'm going to move on to I know Deej wants in. All I will say is in kindergarten, I had a girl bite a chunk out of my arm. Okay, it was crazy.
Welcome to life. I've had girls beat the shit out of me too.
That girl has
welcome to life.
We should find her, and we should. You know what I mean. You can read between the lines.
Deej, go save us.
Nuremberg.
Okay, all right. So there's a couple of things I want to reply to, but I will keep them succinct. So first, what kicked off that tirade was I want to make a point of are people going to change how they get involved in their kids' education from the DOE collapsing or going away? How many people know parents that all of a sudden started caring about their kids' education that they weren't really like paying attention to when the whole trans stuff in Florida started happening? When there's a dramatic political shift and change that happens, especially when it's something that people don't like, they suddenly start to gain an interest in something that they literally didn't care about or put any time and attention to years prior. The other point on like getting kids in school, I agree that's a great program. Unfortunately, there's a lot of states, especially cities, Baltimore as an example, where the Department of Education has done nothing to be able to help fix that problem. The reality is that the Department of Education has proven to be totally inadequate at solving those problems. The third, I reject the premise that the Department of Education collapsing means that none of these programs will continue. There's a huge incentive for Congress to act quickly to get things in place to keep these programs continuing because they're wildly popular. We've seen lots of times when a department gets shut down, but there's a program people really like. Political will finds a way to keep it going. Okay.
So, good.
I'm sorry, just real quickly, I think that there is a huge difference between the trans political issue and the Department of Education, which nobody seems to even know what they do or give a fuck about it. Like,
most parents didn't know what the policies their schools were implementing regarding transgender children in their schools. That's the whole point, right? Is that the parents didn't care.
They have some ideas that they got from
and all the people upset about that stuff, Deej, still don't know fucking anything, can't define woke, don't understand trans things. They're just upset because someone told them to be.
They're involved at the very least. The point is,
and arguing for these like ridiculous programs that don't solve the problem they think they're addressing.
When something political happens that causes a bunch of people to focus in on that political topic, they start to all of a sudden become experts or really care about this thing that they didn't care about literally at any time prior. How many people are literally willing to go and die for Ukraine right now when before the war started couldn't even find Ukraine on
Can
a
I
map?
ask you
The
a hypothetical,
power of
Deej?
politics that happens is extremely powerful in changing people's perspective, and that's how political groundswells for different initiatives end up happening.
Can I ask you a hypothetical?
Go ahead.
It's
Okay.
going to be necessarily a good thing either.
What did I have for breakfast?
Wait, no. If this happens, what percentage of negligent parents do you think will start caring?
Probably only a couple percentage points, but I think that.
And this
could
is good enough to cut
potentially
it?
grow
A
into
couple
more.
percentage.
Well,
That's
yeah,
an
because of what's it doing right now? The thing is its own stated goals.
No, your entire argument rests on the idea that this is going to solve it by making people care, and even you think it's only going to be a couple percentage points. So what the fuck, all those other people? Do you see what I'm saying?
No, because I don't agree with the premise that if the Department of Education collapses, that all these programs are going to stop. You've agreed already that the states
yes, and that's why I'm a little
handle most of
confused. So it's like, do you want to get rid of the funding for the Title I and the disabled kids, or do you want to not do that?
I'm not saying that because I don't think that those can exist without the Department of Education.
Sure, they can. In fact, they existed before the Department of Education, and so and you're saying they would.
What point is the
so why even get rid of the DOE if it's going to be immediately replaced,
why have the DOE?
Because you're consolidating all of this stuff into one place and allowing the communication.
Why does it have to be consolidated?
Because the communication between 8 different industries is not good, and that's why Jimmy Carter said, you know what, it would be a lot more efficient if we put this all in one place, which just gets us back to our original point. But again, if you're not arguing against the policy, what do you mean? Based on what metric?
Has it achieved its stated goals?
What are its stated goals?
Educational excellence and making us competitive on the world stage, and equal access for everybody throughout the country.
Do you think it hasn't given equal access to people or improved that in any way?
I think that it has improved that. However, the trend on equal access for education was like high school graduation rates were already trending on the upwards when the Department of Education came about. There wasn't some dramatic shift or whatever. It still took from its founding till now.
So you think it did little to nothing?
I think that it had a... I don't think that you could really say there's a definitive impact that it had, other than
if you can't say
the
that
Department of Education over the time that it was happening. Because you already saw like graduation rates increase by from 15% to 14% from 1970 to 1980 when it was founded, and then you saw graduation rates plummet by a half percentage point the next year, and then it was kind of like a steady 0.2%.
Tell me, I want to lay out what you've said, and you tell me if I'm missing something. So you're not against Title I or disability funding, right? You're saying that these are okay things. You're saying they don't need to exist solely in the DOE. However, you're okay with them being axed, then immediately replaced or quickly replaced because you have Congress has an incentive to do so.
They wouldn't be axed and replaced. The department in charge of facilitating them would get deleted, but that doesn't mean that the law all of a sudden disappears.
Right.
It would be one of the first actions of Congress that they would need to do is to find out how they're going to replace.
That could be simply sent to the Office of Budget Management and all that.
So at the very least, why would you not be advocating for replacing this and then axing the redundancy? Why axe it and then replace it?
Because I don't think that the federal government should have broad oversight over education for the entire country.
Sure, that's your ideology. I'm saying if you think this can be replaced with a system that does not have broad oversight, why not say, hey, Congress, pass this law, replace these funds, put them somewhere else, then axe the DOE so there's just zero chance of any hiccup.
Going to happen. The only way that you actually get like fast like change like that is to break something first. Like the idea that Congress is going to, even if Trump had a majority, push forward legislation to replace the DOE and then get rid of it just doesn't happen. You get
because it's not popular and they don't need to. No one wants to do that. So why would they do it?
Just real quick, Soy, right? You made a statement there that I think is worth exploring, right? Do you think it is generally a good thing that on the federal level, they have oversight on states' education decisions?
I think in the way that the DOE does it, which is to enforce anti-discrimination, yeah, because you've seen in the past, I mean, the reason these things exist is because you looked at the way that desegregation was implemented on a state-by-state level, and a bunch of people were bullshitting around with it, and they said, hey, we're going to come in and make sure that this isn't...
Desegregation was long gone when the DOE came into effect in 1980.
Legally, it was long gone.
Now that Trump has the ability to appoint whoever he likes to Department of Education and fill it with his own people. And I do think that it was either you or Stardust who mentioned in a kind of joking manner now that the Department of Education might start taking away funding from if you teach an illegal immigrant or if you have DEI in your schools or anything like that. Do you think that it's still a good thing that the federal government has the ability to pick winners and losers like that on the federal stage?
I mean, if you're saying, do I support the federal government picking winners and losers when they pick them to not discriminate against black people, but I don't support it when they discriminate against illegal immigrants or trans people? Yeah. I like good things. I don't like bad things. I don't think
Sure,
that
but
is
you understand how
ideologically.
giving
I
that
understand
to them-
that giving them the power to do that, but the state can do that just as well. And I think the federal government in the past has more checks and balances to say, hey, this is a civil rights, law that we passed, and we're going to enforce this through this agency. And I don't want there to be 50 different governments deciding whether or not they want to discriminate against people.
Yeah,
There
and
is a
see, if we're talking about like cutting, if we're trying to cut back on things, cut out like waste and cut out all this other all this other stuff. If you're delegating some of these duties to different agencies, not only are we like increasing the burden on these other agencies, we also will need to hire people for those agencies to do these things, right? So we're just like putting money elsewhere into this, and I feel like we're just making something more complicated with no reason to do so. I don't understand why we can't just reform.
See,
So
I
if we
think that it would
hire a
actually
few
make
less
things.
people, hold on, there's an expense to reform that is not involved if you start trading people out. So based on your objection, am I correct in saying that you'd be fine with this, or at least view it as consistent, if we had at least one less employee than the prior, handling the duties of the Department of Education?
Thank you for the
than
20 gifted
the
Wick
current
TV memberships, JMac. Really appreciate you. You're increasing education in my chat. But go ahead, continue.
Hey, J-Mac.
That was the end of my
So
question.
I don't think for me that's not really my thing, right? I think we can do all of those things with just reforming the Department of Education internally. I don't understand.
Can I ask you, Stardust?
I'll bite that bullet. I mean, yeah,
Just
if
real
you
quick.
could get rid of the DOE and do everything exactly the same without any hiccups, we're not reducing any of these fundings, but we reduce the employees by say 100 and we save a little money. Sure, if that was the case, I don't think it is, but I would say that's fine. Yeah, it's not about the specific institution.
Before we go on, because people keep using this word and Stardust use this word, I just want some elaboration on what you mean. You say you'll be fine with reform. Like, I think Deej has even said this. Other people have said this. I'm okay with reforming the DOE. Stardust, I'm just asking, what do you mean by reform? How would you reform the DOE?
I mean, I think that people have valid concerns about how efficient things are, how bureaucratic things are, right? And I think one of the stronger arguments I saw regarding this was just that there's already it's only like I think like 8.5% of federal funding that goes towards like state schools and stuff, but it like even then like I don't know all of the issues within the system. I just think that it would be more efficient to actually reform internally, reform the actual organization rather than just axing the entire thing and then finding, after we've axed everything, finding solutions to all the things that are now left up in the air. I just don't think that's a very efficient way of solving problems.
Yeah,
So.
it's so the
Almost
Elon
sounds
Musk
like
go fast,
reform
break
is a smoke
things
screen.
like. Well, you get all these Doge people coming in, axing all the Department of Energy people, axing the FDA people, and it's like, oh fuck, we needed that, put it back. Like that's not a good way to solve things. It's never going to be up to par with what it was before. Maybe you've cut some inefficiencies, but if you look at any of the practices or places that this has been tried, where you just cut its head off and then try to regrow it, it comes back worse and it's broken in many different ways. And yeah, reform is slow. Yeah, government's bad, but I just don't see how. I mean, this whole thing seems to rest, at least for or D's on this idea that, well, this could work, so let's do it. Like, instead of, hey, why don't we be safe about this when we're affecting millions of children and their outcomes in life? Like, it's so, I don't know, it's such a weak, like, well, it might work. Like, I know it doesn't work in all these situations, so why even bother trying it? So
yeah, and it just
So-
makes I don't understand. Like, I don't understand why we wouldn't. Why people who are proposing this have not come up with a solution to like catch all of the things that are going to be left up in the air. I don't understand it. I don't understand why you would ever, in any other scenario, like just get rid of something completely and then after the fact find solutions.
Because
So-
they're huge pussies, and the reason why these problems haven't been solved before.
Housekeeping, shush for a minute, right? We're gonna let you guys both respond first, Deej, then Ash, okay? And then we're going to start wrapping up. Okay, go to closing statements because I got some things to do tonight. But Deej, then Ash, and then I have an announcement, and then closing statements. Go ahead, Deej.
So I would flip this coin and say all the things that have been complained that would like all of a sudden go away when the DOE would go away have conceded that they existed before the Department of Education. The Department of Education doesn't have to exist for Title I to exist, for IDEA to exist. All these things do not need the Department of Education. I would flip the question and ask, why do we need the Department of Education, knowing that it doesn't improve educational outcomes? It still is up to the states to close the gap on grading disparities between the low income and the high income students. It doesn't allow us to be more competitive on the world stage. So yeah, I think this is something that we've seen that education and all of these things we want in place were in place before the Department of Education. Supposedly, creating the Department of Education was supposed to make things more efficient. We've actually seen that, well, it hasn't at best. It's kept things literally static, largely the same, or continuing identical trends before their existence, or it's been a net negative and has resulted in worse
no,
outcomes.
we've already
So I would
addressed
say-
this. So you're saying keep all the things that are good about it, but split it up into multiple agencies that aren't able to communicate with each other, have a more difficulty with filing complaints for,
Because-
that already have their own duties that are not what those duties are now overbloated with several different new things they have to do. How does this somehow make it better?
Because in something like education, where we can every single year or every 3 years, however we're like whatever, we can see how effective they are being at their stated goal. And an office is a lot easier to hold accountable to performance and results than departments. The larger a government organization becomes, the less accountable it is.
You're
to
arguing
both
to take a
the elected people
4,000
and
person
also-
cabinet, split those people into larger cabinets, and then hold them accountable. That's
I never
more
said
government.
anything about larger cabinets.
Where else
And,
would it
like,
go?
The Department of Education does a lot of different things. Those things can be split into their own specific offices with specialists that specialize in one specific thing.
Okay,
instead of
if they
needing to
have separate
bureaucrats at
smaller
the top
cabinets,
that
understand.
manage
Okay.
literally everything, right?
And
And they're just managing those specialists instead of letting the specialists lead the organizations of the things that they're good at, and then let the states. Like the states, ultimately, their role would remain largely the same, except for I would love it if we could get rid of Common Core and we can get rid of the national standards because they've shown to be more harmful than good.
Okay, gang. So, before we go to closing statements, it's been a robust discussion. Tomorrow, 6 p.m. Eastern. Okay, I'll let you get to the closing statements and responses and things. 6 p.m. Eastern tomorrow, I'm having Ryan Macbeth on, okay? So we're going to be talking about the Ukraine and Russia war. He's a contributor to Newsmax. He's got a pretty big YouTube channel. You probably know who he is if you're
I
familiar
love
with
Ryan
Ukraine.
Macbeth. He's so cool.
Yeah, he is. And he graciously agreed to give me some of his time. And I'm going to be talking with him one-on-one tomorrow. So tune in for that. It should be fun. 6 p.m. Eastern, Tuesday. With that said, we have some... I want to give each of these people an outro to tell you who they are, where they can find you. I have links to all their stuff in my YouTube description. So if you've been watching them and you're like, I hate that person or I love that person and you want to see more of them, I have links to their YouTubes, to their X, their Twitters, and all that in the YouTube description. Go check it out. It should be fun. with that said, like and subscribe if you've enjoyed this content.
Sorry, Anita. I'll read it after, but I wasn't able to get to that.
Chat I got real quick. Oh, J-Mac, thank you again for the gift sub. You gave one to yourself too. Great, thank you. And this is from Glitterbell. I got bullied in high school, so now support culling the poor and weak. Okay, and with that, we're going to go to closing statements. We're going to start with Libertarian, and we're going to end with Stardust, and that's how we're going to go. LT, give us what you got.
I'm just pretty much gonna say that. Wow, I'm terrible at this. Just skip me. Oh my god.
Okay, you can find her stuff if you love that wonderful outro. Her stuff is on Twitter, and I linked her Twitter in the chat. Deej, give us what you got.
Yeah. I mean, I've said my piece. Department of Education, I think it is unnecessary and does more harm than good. You can find me on Twitter, Wick linked it. You can also find me on YouTube. I'm going to be doing some video game devlogs. I'm working on that in the background. And then occasionally I stream from my flight simulator over here in my little cave. And yeah, you can follow me on Twitter if you want, but I'm mostly just shit posting there, so nothing of substance.
Sounds good. Thank you for being here. Really appreciate you. Soypill.
Yeah, the Department of Education is a very good industry cabinet that provides lots of funding to people that need it, specifically poor kids, specifically disabled kids, kids that have trouble getting into college. There are many arguments for whether or not we should regulate loans better, or whether or not we should talk about whether or not the Common Core worked, or what the role of the federal government should be in all this. The point is the oversight in which enforcing anti-discrimination practices works. It works. I really like how that works. I think if you look at Common Core and where it hasn't been accepted, we can talk about the failures of it, but I mean, look at Arizona. They, voted against Common Core and they did school choice, and, they're spending like triple as much money as their budget. They're embezzling all this money for all these homeschoolers who are taking these vouchers and buying tickets to SeaWorld and kayaks and all this crap. It's not regulated. It's not enforced. I think school choice could work if you regulated it correctly. It's not what the Republicans want. They want to get rid of public schools. The public schools in Arizona are shutting down, and they want that to happen everywhere because they want private schools. They want religious institutions that can teach all their crazy Christian nationalist crap to have all your money. I don't think we should get rid of the DOE. I'm all for cutting waste management. And luckily, instead of debating conservatives, I debated 3 libertarians who probably are more aligned with me on this than they're not, because they don't think that just axing this altogether and not replacing it is a good thing, although that is what the Trump people want to do. So I hope they see the light and come over, and they don't want to get rid of things that actually work, because God forbid that seems to be what we're doing. The Trump people do not have an adequate replacement. Stop them, please. Oh, type 1 to the deep state. You can find me on YouTube at the Soy Pill.
Okay. Links to stuff's in my description. Thank you for being here. Gelatinous Rube. Ash, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think this debate has illustrated that smarmy conservatives kind of prevent effective reform when it comes to these awful, evil industries, because they're refusing to call specific policies evil. Turning students who spend 18 years being told that they need to get a college degree into lifetime debt slaves, just so that, and forcing them to commit to lifetime debt, just so they can now finally receive an entry-level job in anything besides manual labor, is evil. These people should be, it doesn't pass the sniff test for any historical precedent or historical law on something like usury. We don't allow credit card companies to behave like this. They are accomplices to a scam. They should be put in prison. This is the moderate position. There is no reform possible with these people. It's not even desirable. They're evil. They did something terrible that affects millions of people. By the way, locks out lots of people from getting any kind of higher education, or even getting them to get them any kind of higher calling in life, because you have to commit to tens of thousands of dollars in debt to get an entry-level job. Any government agency that did this should be axed. They should be put in prison. And this is the moderate position. I wish that something could come along to replace it. I don't think it will. It will not be nothing. Nothing is worth maintaining this kind of system.
Where can people find you?
On Twitter, at Root Jelly.
Okay, check them out, gang. And last, but certainly not least, Stardust.
Thank you so much for having me, Wick. I know it's been a while since I've been in a debate, but I very much enjoyed this. I don't know where you found this guy. I have no idea. I've never seen. What a character! Amazing. I think I have changed my opinion on this whole thing. I think we need to actually make the school to prison pipeline much more efficient. I think we should just take all men. Since they're already like more prone to violence and more prone to impulsive behavior, we should just funnel them all into prisons. Right from a young age, I think it would be a good idea. Men are only meant to be the workhorses of society anyways, because there's no real intelligence difference, if we're going to be real. The only real difference between men and women is like the physical difference. They're basically made to be the workhorses of society. So just put them all in prison. They can work themselves out of prison. I think it's a great idea. And I want to die. I want to die after this panel, so thank you, Wick. I'm Star. You may know me from the Stardust channel. You may have seen me in some, various interactions in political and drama adjacent communities. I retired that Stardust channel. I now have 2 new YouTube channels. Star-Crossed, where I cover political stuff and I do video essays, and I have Smolitics, where I am planning to do political content. So catch me there, and I'm going to drink bleach after this. Thank you.
Beautiful, wonderful, great. We're making the world a better place, gang. Okay, thank you again for coming, all of you. Give all these people a wonderful follow and subscribe or whatever they want, right? Go click their links, reward them for being on this panel of all panels. So again, tomorrow, Ryan Macbeth, should be a great discussion. Wednesday, we're having a debate on conscription. Is it ever justified? So we're going to have Andrew Mercado on that. We're going to have Timothy Imhoff.
Only for men. Only. Sorry.
Not you.
You should have done like a Martin Luther King Jr. impression while you were doing that. It would have been.
I have a dream. Okay, Thursday. Thursday, we're going to be talking about the economy.
These men.
And a few others. So lots of content this week. Tune in. Keep giving me your money because I will spend your money more efficiently and better than you ever can. And with that, bye-bye, everyone. Bye.
Woo! Give me a sec, guys. Let me turn on this webcam. Boy, oh boy. Really did not think that was going to be a libertarian-only debate. Holy shit. I did all this. This is the same thing that happened with the Destiny debate. I do all this reading, and I'm like, okay, let's learn how the DOE works. Let's learn like where the funding goes. Like, let's think of all the arguments about why we need to get rid of it. Well, school choice will happen. And the closest thing we got to that was the TL libertarian lady who was advocating for school choice, which is fucking stupid, by the way, because the way they always implement it, it just fucking fails. Now, you could look at, like, I think Boston has, like, school choice in a way that works because they have regulations on, like, how far away you're allowed to go and, like, how many students of a certain income you can do. And I thought she was going to have more arguments, but then she comes out and is like, well, I mean, if the DOE goes away, you could just hire a private tutor for your fucking, disabled kid. Like, yeah, easy, $7,000, stipend for a year is enough for my private tutor or whatever the fuck. Libertarians are fucking stupid. Every single one of their arguments at best works in, a vacuum, and then you get into reality and it just falls apart as soon as you look at how it works. But, at the very least, they're not malicious, except for maybe Ash, who was just like, hey, fuck kids who are slightly problematic. Get rid of them all. That was a little yikesy. He was starting to 1350 there at the end, but I don't think he's actually racist. I think he's just libertarian, which is the difference being ideology. A racist will not let black people into their hotel because they hate black people. A libertarian won't let black people into their hotel because it is economically better outcome-wise to only let rich people in, and they just happen to discriminate against black people economically. So it's a little marginal difference there. Anita Bonghit, let me see what your super chat is. I saw what it is. I couldn't read it or ask them in real time, but also because I'm not as informed on this. But you said on student loans, would you like to hear what specific regulations the folks against the DOE think that the DOE regulate in terms of how those loan companies' predatory practices function and how has it gotten worse? I don't know. I don't know what those predatory practices are. I know they exist. I know that, yeah, there is some function of loans increasing the cost of college, and it's bad. But like, I don't think that's the only reason college costs are going up. And even if it was, I don't think that means we should just get rid of all loans. I think we should reform the cost of college while reducing the loans, and we can kind of work out a middle ground there. But the idea that we're just going to axe the whole fucking thing is so stupid. Woo! But yeah, libertarians are stupid, dumb. I hate them. Read some of your chats now. Yeah, sorry for all that. I saw a few of you guys tapped out in the middle of that. We're just like, fuck this, which I totally get. It was. All right, give me a second. Let me see if I can open this without making you listen to me real quick, because I'm gonna put a poll in chat. I wasn't planning on streaming anytime soon. However, poll in chat. How can I do this? Do people want to watch me play video games on Friday? Do people want to watch me play video games on Friday? Start poll. Because I'm going to be streaming a lot more soon. A lot more soon. Potentially not every day. I could, but I don't think we'll get there. I have a lot more time on my hands as of recently, for various reasons, and I want to put that into the channel. So I want to engage more with you guys. I want to get more super chats, and I want to talk more, answer questions, because right now I'm very frustrated with watching your chats go by during the middle of the debate and not being able to answer them, which means I can answer more questions, in a non-debatey setting. Especially, I see people get mad, like, why aren't you reading the chat? And I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm trying to pay attention to what this person's saying, because the last time I didn't do that, I like yelled at them for like repeating something when it was like, oh, I should have listened. So yes, I'd like to engage more, and maybe I'll do more weekly streams. If not like bi-weekly, tri-weekly. Who knows? Maybe I'll become a full-time streamer. I don't want it to interfere with my content creation, because I have a new idea for a video, and I want to actually think I can actually grind this out in maybe a week or less. I don't want to promise, but I think I can do it. If I start tonight and I record tomorrow or Wednesday, I could have it out by like Friday or Monday or something, and that would be so cool. I'd love to give you guys that. The video game I'm thinking of playing is called These Darker Tides. It's like a Lovecraftian horror Five Nights at Freddy's type thing, and I love Lovecraftian deep sea stuff, so you can watch me shit my pants or whatever. In the meantime, new video coming soon-ish, TM, definitely before the end of the month, on fucking Ben Shapiro doing the Pardon Derek Chauvin campaign. It's so insane. I need to make a video debunking these insane claims. I can't believe we're relitigating the 2020 George Floyd incident, but we are. So we need to talk about it. Like, it's actually insane that how many of my conservative friends think that he died of a fentanyl overdose, because he just didn't. Like, that's just factually not true. So we're going to make a video on that. People keep telling me to do Freedom Tunes. I almost did that, and I think it will be coming soon. And yeah, more streams, more stuff with you guys, and maybe more gaming. Just know that more is coming. Oh, workout video. Nut. Good thing you asked. I might post a post about this soon. My bulk finished on March 1st. I have 205 pounds. So that means I'm cutting right now. You'll see I'll get more angry and more tired in the middle of the day. But what that does mean is that when my cut finishes, and I'm guessing that'll be March, April, May, maybe June, early June, and I'm shredded as shit, that's when the workout video is coming, because I want to look as best as possible. And it will be the only workout video that you ever need. TM. Copyright asterisk. All right? So that will happen, and you can all thirst over me. I really like your cum stream overlay. I didn't even think that it looked like a light white liquid. I was just, I thought it looked cool, but now I think it's soy, not cum. But all right. I don't like horror games. I'm probably going to tap in. Yeah, sorry guys if it's too scary. Wait, how do I can hide this poll from myself? All right. Looks like I'm going to do it on Friday. Mog for us. I don't know what mog means. I mean, I do, but I don't know what mog for us means in this context. Drink water. Don't die of dehydration. I will dehydrate for the video to create unrealistic expectations and give you all body dysmorphia. But yeah, so that's kind of the update so far. I'm not saying anything specific, only that I have a lot more time on my hands, and I'm going to start wanting more. Oh, Anita, you can't donate again after I didn't even read your... Anita, for you guys who don't know, Anita is a top tier patron of mine, so thank you, Anita. I should read your whole name, because Anita Bonghit, great name. But you've already now given me $12 in the stream, which thank you, I really appreciate it, and I do want the money more now. for reasons, but I don't want you to give me money, especially when I couldn't read your super chat. I felt bad about that. So I don't know if I can even refund your $10. Why did you lose your USAID funding, which is why you're posting more? Because they canceled it. Although the Supreme Court said they're bringing it back. So maybe, God forbid, maybe Zetsui and Lactoid and those guys are right. Maybe the guardrails, are holding. Just maybe, God forbid that, well, I shouldn't even say they're right, but it's like, yeah, like I don't want the president to be testing these guardrails every 10 seconds and fucking them over for a period of time before they suddenly kick in. But maybe things will be okay. Maybe a little optimism. Maybe the Supreme Court. Maybe Amy Coney Barrett is coming in clutch. She played Hamilton songs for Kentanji Brown Jackson, so maybe she's kind of woke. Maybe she is on our side in certain cases. But are you related to Ivana Bonghit? Yeah, that's his Ivana Bonghit is his cousin, or her cousin, Anita. I'm guessing girl. I won't assume your gender. I'll give you $5 if I say Anita Max in the Drake. First of all, what's the Drake voice? And I mean, you can give me $5 and I'll try it, but I don't even know what the Drake voice is. I don't listen to enough Drake. I have the best guardrails. Homer's mom? I've watched a lot of Simpsons seasons 1 through 8. I don't remember that one, so maybe I'll have to look into that. But yes, so what's happening? I'm going to be grinding out a George Floyd video for the next 3 days and potentially have that for patrons on Friday. I'm not going to promise that because I can't promise. Maybe, quality over quantity, guys. Like, I'm going to make sure this is a good thing. There's a video, I think I've said this before on stream. There's a video I made on welfare. And I made it, I put a bunch of hours into it, and I watched it, and I was like, this fucking sucks, and I'm never going to release it. It's on my hard drive, I'm never going to release it. It's bad, okay? So I will never release anything that I think is bad to you guys just because I want money or a sponsor or some bullshit. That's not what I want. That said, I need to start producing more content, and I need to grow that momentum and get more super chats and that sort of stuff. So I am going to try to grind out stuff that is quality, that you guys enjoy. I was too in the deep state for the weird arguments for eliminating DOE. Did you cook them? I don't think I cooked them. It was more just like, is this really what we're saying? Like, at best, their arguments were, this could be done by another department. I don't want more government bloat, which is like, okay, if you could do that, sure. It doesn't seem like you can. And also, you're not advocating it. At worst, it's, let's get rid of this so we can have school choice, which is stupid. Yeah. Immigration video win. I wasn't planning on doing an immigration video, but I could do one. It depends on how big in the news it is, and like, when Trump starts doing some crazy border crap, like having AC-130s strafe it back and forth. You should unlist the video then in your description and post one letter of the URL every video. As a little teaser. No, the point is I don't want you guys to see it, not because I'm embarrassed, because I wouldn't want to watch it, so why should I make you, right? Thank you for being the only redeeming quality besides Star. Star was great. I think she did great. She got I think she was a little over aggressive at certain points, like that didn't deserve it, but I mean, I probably do that, so whatever. Yeah, she's cool. And we coordinated a little before, we exchanged notes. She's a good person, It's hard to cook when they start less than half baked. Yeah, I thought I was going to have to defend or attack conservative arguments, but these aren't even conservative arguments. It was literally libertarian brain rot. So the outro was a little, not gonna lie, a little aggressive, you mean? Or her outro was aggressive, yeah. Yeah, their opponents just wanted teachers to start showing kids Landman. What is that? I didn't watch the debate. Was it good? I think it was good if you don't know anything about the DOE. It was good to form your opinions on it. Someone asked, I saw YouTube Hates Free Speech, who, again, I know in real life, and he asked, are there any teachers or educators or people with kids on this debate panel? I don't think any of us have kids. Maybe Deez did. I don't think that matters in terms of arguing whether or not the DOE should exist. Also, if you've gone through the public school system, you know how bad it can be. I went through the public school system. I had all the things that Ash was talking about. Like, yeah, there's kids assaulting each other. There's kids, screaming, acting up, and they're ruining my education. It really did happen. That doesn't mean we should not give, Title I funding to poor communities. It means we should improve classrooms so that these students have better outlets. Maybe we can have, an extra teacher's aide to help quiet them down. Now, segregation by intelligence did happen in high school because they had AP classes. So once you got to junior and senior year, the smart kids got into the advanced or honors class, and the dumb kids stayed in the regular classes. And so you got what was essentially all the kids who wanted to learn and all the kids who didn't want to learn set apart. And people argue against that because they say, well, you shouldn't, by putting the smart kids with the dumb kids will have something to aspire to, which does sometimes happen. But I think if you have kids who are unwilling to learn and disrupt, I don't think you should necessarily just, first of all, not fund them, but like segregate them. I think you need to give them more resources to find out better ways to teach them. And right now, it seems what a lot of schools do is just say like, okay, just put them all in like kid jail and fuck them, essentially. Not literally, but like, whatever. They suck. There's so many ways we could make it better. And not getting I guess the current coin flip, which he literally said, but I know he didn't mean it this way, was, hey, let's coin flip and maybe getting rid of the DOE will push people into doing better in education and the parents will care again, which I know that's not going to happen. And even if it was going to happen, he's like, yeah, like 5 to 10% of people would probably do it or something like that. It's like, well, fuck, like, so 90% of these kids' parents are just fucked. Like, yeah, it's ridiculous. Who was the teacher? Didn't Ash say he went to a private school? Oh, maybe. I went to a private middle school, by the way, and it was great. You just had to pay a bunch of money, and it's a better school. And like, of course, like if you pay a bunch of money and the classes are smaller and you have teachers that get paid more, like, yeah. The outcomes for all students are better in mixed level classrooms? Really? I'd have to read that. I just intuitively, I don't believe that, but it could be true. I mean, literally in Germany, what they do is they have 3 levels. They have what is it? It's a Hauptschule, Grundschule, and Gymnasium. So you get like the kids who you think are going to be smart, and like after middle school, you send them all to Gymnasium, and then you get the like kids who might be smart or might not be, and you send them to the Grundschule, and then I think Hauptschule is like the you're fucking idiot class, and like they're like, yeah, you're gonna. Even then, they teach them like, hey, how would you go and get into a trade? Like, and they don't slip through the cracks. So there's definitely better ways to do this. I don't know if that's the best way that we could do it, but trade schools, Republicans talk about that all the time. I'm not against trade schools. I think a lot more kids could go into trade schools. So Max Sterner, hey, I had mild special ed. It was very good. I did okay in college until, COVID burnt. Oh my God, I just barely missed COVID. Literally last year of college was right before COVID hit. And I can't imagine how much college would suck doing it all online. But, yeah, your special ed dedicated class was probably funded by Title I, or not Title I, but IDEA. Anita Bonghit says a lot of arguments were we should have something that's like DOE without being the DOE. Yeah, it's like at best there are arguments where I agree with all of this stuff except do it slightly different. And it's like, okay, then why are we even talking about it? Because first of all, that's not what Trump wants. Trump wants to get rid of it all. Republicans want to privatize everything. They want all the money to go to religious schools. That's not what they want, maybe, but are you telling me that more money leads to better outcomes? Not necessarily, actually. More money can do absolutely nothing if you don't allocate it well. If you dump a bunch of money into a school funding and they just say, all right, I'm building a stadium. All right, I'm getting new textbooks. New textbooks don't make kids smarter. It might help them learn a little better if their textbook isn't all fucked up, but it doesn't fix education. You need smaller classrooms, more teachers that are giving a shit because they actually have money, but like this stuff just isn't happening. I mean, every single friend that I have that is hyper intelligent, that actually gives a shit about students' outcomes, they are all going to quit being teachers because they don't have the resources they need. They have to pay money out of pocket for student supplies, and they have to deal with really shitty kids and like 50 of them at a time sometimes. It's driving good teachers away, so that people have no other choice are being teachers, and they're just fucking, as they should be, depressed and angry at the state of everything, and they're not very excited about teaching. There's some good teachers. Most teachers aren't good. That's not the Department of Education's fault. I think we do need more money, but you can't just dump money on it. Like, I unironically believe if we just swapped like the salary numbers for like, I don't know, teachers and cops, like the world would probably be just like a better place, but don't take my word on that. Obviously just pay everyone more. It's not zero sum. Yeah. Here's your DOE Soros bucks for another day of furthering the woke agenda. Thank you, Commenting Wolf. Commenting Wolf sounds like 2016 like skeptic persona, which is like kind of what I have, but at least you can still see my face. But like, it's like, oh, it's Learning Llama and he's going to dissect the SJWs. Like Connor Mason, I suffered discrimination in the system. I was a good English student, but towards the end, my English teacher was very bigoted because I have 2 dads and she tried to put me in speed special ed English. But did you like talk with like a gay lisp? And so they were like, oh, they need better They need better training. No, that sucks. I'm really sorry that happened. Okay. Are you the same, Connor? I feel like you've been in my chat saying a lot of other not great stories about how people have treated you, and I hope your life has notably improved since then, because that does really suck. I was not discriminated against, but I had some bad stuff. Thanks for subscribing, Spencer619. I graduated high school in 2020. Well, I hope you didn't have to go to remote college, but my first year of college was when COVID hit. Oof. Fun fact about the German 3-tier system: it was created by Bismarck. Yeah, that's like, I think, didn't he also do the universal healthcare too? Like Bismarck, I'm sure, you know, like if you go look at his policies from like the, what, 1850s? Am I stupid? Hold on. When the fuck did Bismarck come around? I'm going to sound so stupid if this isn't true. Okay, 1850s. Okay. Like around that time. A lot of his policies would probably be questionable, like, you know, socially, politically. But the guy had a lot of good ideas, and they still fucking work. And at least they're continuing the momentum of those good ideas. Mixed level benefiting outcomes things came up in my teacher training. Oh, okay, gotcha. 50 and 1. Yeah, I had 45 people classes in my high school. It was insane. It was terrible. Like it was unmanageable. And like one kid not behaving is bad enough. Maybe you can kind of eject them. 2, you're done. You just don't learn that day. It can be really bad. 12,000 kids to one teacher. You know, that's kind of what they do in college. It's like 500. Commenting wolf, damn, you did get me. Oh my, wait, was I right? Is it actually the gay lisp? Oh no, commenting wolf. No, that's not Connor Mason. Excuse me. Most teachers would get less money in most states if they got swapped. Really? I thought cops got paid pretty much better than teachers. Also, teachers only work 9 months out of the year, so technically they get 3 months vacation, but you know, they do work on that vacation. So I'm Bingus Ningus. I love your name. I'm high functioning, I have ADHD, and I can say for certain without the support from my school's disability program, I wouldn't have been able to succeed in the way I did. Well, guess what? The current policy is get fucked. Too bad you succeeded. That help is dumb because it's wasteful. I'm happy it helped you. I'm sorry if you or anyone else you know is affected when this shit happens. Maybe on Thursday. It's coming. They're doing it. Bismarck is the GOAT except for all of the bad stuff. Yeah, that's how I feel about most people. Or everyone, really. I had a double pedo-teacher combo with both of them working at my high school. You know, I actually did have a pedophile teacher, and before I knew he was a pedophile, he was pretty good. He was like the critical thinking teacher in English, and he would teach us all this stuff. And there was all these weird rumors about him, like talking to girls when their senior year and then right after they graduated. And then there was a rumor where he dated one of them, and it was like, okay, that's kind of weird. And then 4 years or 5 years after graduation, it just came out that he was like soliciting nudes from one of the students, and now he's in jail. And I was like, oh, that's sad that he turned out to be a shitty person. Not that he's in jail. He should be in jail. So do you think Bismarck was ever as swole? No one was as swole as people today back then. They all just like rubbed themselves with bands to get all of the bad muscle out. You know, they didn't know how to work out. Anita Bonghate, glad I had Monday off to watch this just for you. Yeah, thank you so much, Anita, for the donations, for watching, and for being a top tier patron. You are helping me fulfill my dream. You're the bestest. Teachers do plenty of planning on that break. Yeah, teachers work during that break, but they don't get paid very much for it. It's ridiculous. No list, but she started forcing me to study religious texts and marking me extra harshly. Holy shit. It's so funny too, because it's not even discriminating against you for being gay. I mean, maybe you are, but like clearly this was like, I don't like who your parents are. That's insane. So I'm sorry that happened. And by the way, if you filed a complaint through the DOE, you might have a lawsuit on your hands and might get that person fired. And if they split all of those divisions up into different things, if they keep everything, best case scenario, it's going to be way harder for people like you to get help after they get discriminated against like that. So fuck those people for trying to get rid of the DOE in the way they are. I saw a map with who earns more. 50% of states, teachers got more. Wow. Okay. Well, I never would have guessed. So that's also why I was kind of saying it tongue in cheek. Aaron. Hey, Aaron. We think one of my sister's teachers is, a pedophile. Yeah, that's not good. Yeah, there's a lot of them, unfortunately. And I was going to say the more we pay them, the less there will be, but I'm not sure that would be true. If anything, maybe we'd adjust. That's the Republican argument. If we increase teachers' salary, won't we incentivize people who want to molest our kids? Think about it. I had a teacher who was caught doing drugs in class. Oh my god. Henners, they were a husband and wife who groomed a girl. Oh, gross. I had a chem teacher in 7th grade who would spray girls' chests with test tube cleaner water bottles. Oh my god. I had a teacher who would look on hentai a substitute. Well, he's a substitute. Substitutes, they can do whatever they want. Spin the hat. Sorry, Astro. First of all, Cody Moon has priority over asking me to spin the hat, but also the hat is under 17 other hats. I can't get it out, and I'm about to end the stream. So my absolute best teacher was a January 6th defendant. Like, he was at January 6th. Holy shit. Oh my god. Anyway, guys, I'm gonna wrap up. Thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate all the help you're giving me. I'm gonna need more help in the near future, or if not now. But I love you all. Thank you so much for your support and for your donations and for watching. And I hope to see you guys on Friday. If not, new video coming soon. TM. Have a great, fantastic Monday. Type 1 to end the deep state, and good night.